Hello, my fellow movie fans, and welcome to another show of Feast of Films Theatre. Today starring Matthew Black and Ethan R. Hill. There, that's the intro.
Oh, yeah. Classic. Classic.
This episode, too, because it's about Bond, we're going to do it entirely in British accents, right?
Probably not. I don't even do a good... Mine always turns to Australian, so I'm not very good at, like...
Hey, are you saying there
British.
can't be a Bond, an Australian Bond?
No, because that goes against the integral character.
But no,
who is
dude,
British.
No, he's fighting a guy, he's like fighting a short henchman and throws him onto a barbecue, and it's like, there's another shrimp for the barbie.
The Bobby.
And there you go. There's a reason to make Bond Australian. I think that's...
Oh, boy.
I like that idea. I'm gonna copyright that.
Can be an Australian actor. Gotta be English.
Hugh Jackman is... Do you think Hugh Jackman could play a good Bond? Or do you think he's...
He probably could. I don't think he would,
I think he's
though.
too silly. Like, I love Hugh Jackman, but I think he's too silly.
Rodger Moore is pretty silly, too, in some of his movies.
You leave Rodger Moore alone. And it's not... I don't think it's that he's silly as much as, like,
some of his films are silly. Well, yeah, his Bond is a little silly, too, from time to time. It depends which ones you're watching.
I mean, that's fair. I guess that makes sense. I guess I'll allow it.
Hey.
But, I mean,
like, they started off pretty serious, and then they kind of got silly by the time you get to Moonraker and shit. It's like, what?
Double taking pigeon, man. Double taking pigeon.
Hello, my fellow movie fans. Welcome to another episode of A Feast of Films. This is episode 007, and we got a very special episode for you guys today. We're going to be talking about 007 James Bond today. Because it's episode 007, we honestly couldn't resist. I'm Matt Black, and along with me always is...
The name's Hill. Ethan R. Hill.
Wait, do you like that shaken or stirred, sir?
It depends on the day. Depends on the afternoon.
With an umbrella and a sword. And a little cherry on top, please.
And a chunk of pineapple, please, as well. And
you gotta have it fancy, man. You gotta have it fancy.
Man, I'll be honest. Your name works better for your name works better for that intro than mine does.
No, yours is fine.
Well, no,
because
like
Black, Matt Black.
That's the thing. You have the two syllables, right? You have the James Bond.
Oh,
Matt
yeah,
Black,
yeah.
Whereas,
yeah.
like, even if I took off the R, I still have the Ethan Hill. Like, I have 3 syllables.
Ethan Hill.
It's
Hill.
Hilly
Hill.
I'm
Hill.
I'm Hilly. Like any college usernames was always like Hilly, and it's like great.
Nice.
Thanks.
Classic. Well, we got a great show for you guys today lined up here. Again, like I said, we're talking about James Bond. We honestly couldn't help ourselves. We're like, episode 007, we got to make it about James Bond.
Why
like,
not?
There's not even an option.
Well, and what a year
So
to
we're
do
gonna-
it. There's hopefully one coming out this year.
Hopefully, yeah, at the
Hopefully,
end of the year. It was supposed to come out...
April.
Well, it was supposed to come out last year. Then it was supposed to come out early this year. Now, obviously, because of coronavirus and everything, it got moved to the end of
I think November.
this year. But yeah, back to November. So I'm hoping it's good. I'm really excited. I've always been a big fan of the odd number Daniel Craig movies. So
Well,
I'm thinking I'm going to really enjoy this one.
The trailer looked really good. Like I'm
It did.
I'm on board for it. But I mean, like, honestly, it's Bond. Like, we'll get into it, but it takes a very specific Bond film for me not to like it. Like, it's
gotta be special.
Exactly.
It's got to be some kind of special. So, So today we're going to start. We'll obviously start with the question of the day brought by Ethan. Remember, if you guys have questions of the day, you can leave them down below in the comments section, and we will try to integrate them into our very own videos. We won't tell each other which one we're going to use. That's why it's still a surprise, but we're going to roll with that. Then we're going to go through the Bond movies, not individually, but I think just by Bond kind of thing. And then we got a couple other little topics at the end, and then we'll wrap it up. But let's start with question of the day. Ethan, what do you got for us?
All right, so I'm going to keep it in the theme of Bond because, I think why the heck not? And also it's something we're going to start with a really important thing, and Matt's actually giving the hint as to what it is. Hey Matt, what's the best / your favorite Bond theme?
What's my best / favorite
And, like,
Bond theme?
I guess Bond's song, I guess, is the best way to look at it. Because, like, the theme I think,
oh, like the intro, like the
intro
like
song,
the main intro.
There's so much,
Okay,
there's so
okay.
much good music, but also so much weird music attached to the Bond movies.
There is
that
yeah.
like I feel like it's worth discussing, and I think it made for a good, decent question of the day to start off.
Yeah, man, that's a solid question of the day.
Because like
get off the start.
Both of us agree that like the main theme is just gold.
It's money, right?
There's a reason
you know exactly what's going on.
Like you just hear that first like the ba da ba. You know exactly. Like yeah. It's so that theme is so iconic that in the first movie there's an entire scene of Sean Connery just looking for a bug in his room for about 2 minutes to that music in one shot.
Explain.
And it's still entertaining and interesting to watch.
It's good music.
Oh yeah, man.
Bond's always had really interesting music. I used to have this CD that was all like the Bond intros, like for all like the intro movies, and it was just the whole CD of them. And it was amazing because you listen obviously from the beginning and go to the end, and it's literally this journey through time as far as music's concerned, right? So many you see all the different types of music that was like big in those decades and eras. It's really interesting CD. I think it was like the best of Bond or something.
Oh yeah, no, I think I have it
quite good.
Yeah, I have it on my iTunes. It's insane going through. There's actually like me and my roommate have sat down and actually just gone through them all. Like just because we wanted to figure out what is the best or what makes the most sense. And like that's what I'm curious for you. Like what's your favorite one? Like let's start off with that. Like if you had to pick one to be your favorite that you like revisiting and listening to?
I would say it's my favorite one, I would say, is probably from the more modern ones, because obviously that's the type of music like we were, kind of born into or whatever. I would say it's probably a tie between Skyfall and Casino Royale's "You Know My Name." Yeah, that one's so rocking, man. It's so rocking. I love that one. And Skyfall by Adele was obviously like just amazing. It captured like the whole feeling and emotion of Bond, like the tone of the character, like just kind of like it was like almost you could see it being like sung in like a smoky bar, you know what I mean, from the 60s kind of style. Like I really did enjoy Skyfall, but I think You Know My Name. I like that one is tight. It's rock and roll and I love it. Honorable mention too, I think Living Daylights, was that another one? It was a really funny song. I liked that one just because it was weird. It had some guy who sang that Living Daylights. Was that Duran Duran? No. Was it?
Maybe. Or Aha? Was it Aha?
Oh, it was Aha, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Which
it was
is weird
Aha,
when you think about
Duran did A View to a Kill, I think.
When you think about Bond movies, you don't think about groups like you think about individual artists. You don't think about Aha and Duran Duran. Like it's just so it's so weird and out of place. But like when you know the time period that the movie was made in, it makes sense.
It makes sense.
Doesn't make sense. Like
I think A View to the Kill was Duran Duran.
I think so.
But The Living Daylights was just like a funny song. Because it was like, oh, the living daylights. Then they had like the verses, which was like some dude. He sounded like Kermit the Frog. I can't remember how like the verses actually go, so I'm not going to sing it for like, because I'd be completely wrong. But the guy sounds like Kermit the Frog. And I was like, this is hilarious. Like, this is such a weird song. And it's so weird. Like for Bond, again, I think of Skyfall. I think of You Know My Name. I'm like, to me, those make sense as like Bond songs. But there's so many Bond songs. It's like, this literally is not the character at all, but it's so great because it's so the decade, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd have to go with You Know My Name. What about you, bud? What's yours? So
mine is I technically have two favorite like ones, and one is one that doesn't feel like Bond at all, but the other one feels completely like Bond. And I'm going to go a bit older, and that's my favorite just song cuz it's such a good song overall is Live and Let Die. Like that's just it's such a classic rock song. And just
Paul
a
McCartney.
Good song, and it works well with Live and Let Die. It fits. It's bizarre, but it fits.
Yeah, but then the song,
But then the other one, which just to me that's the epitome of what Bond is, and I want more Bond songs to sound like it, is Goldfinger. it's such a classic. Like, I know a lot of people might not like it because it's a bit grating with the trumpets and like
it's a little obnoxious from time to time. But no, I get what you're saying.
It's so Bond. It's so Bond, and I think like it was what was it? The one for Spectre. Whatever Sam Smith did, I can't remember the name of the song.
Oh, Writings on the Wall. Yeah, that was another good one actually. That was pretty good.
I was on board with it musically, but I found his vocals weren't quite there. Like I found like his vocals, like they're good because it's Sam Smith and the guy can sing. I'm never gonna take that away from him ever. But like it just the falsetto voice didn't necessarily work for me as a Bond song personally, but like
I forgot about that one. That was actually pretty good too.
Yeah. Like they have a really good history of Bond songs. Which actually that's another question. How do you feel about the newest Bond song?
Honestly, I saw that it was released freaking way back. I never listened to it. I haven't listened to it yet because the first time I like to listen to it is in the movies. So I'm like, nope. I'm just gonna wait till the movie comes out. At that time, it was like just before the release in April or whatever it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So I figured I only had a little wait. Now it's November, but I've been busy enough, I guess.
Well, then I won't share.
But I haven't yet.
I won't share any thoughts with it then until you watch. I'm curious what you're gonna think about it. But it's something that.
Did you like it?
I wasn't a fan. I didn't really feel like, and I want to make sure that like I also want to make sure that it's not just like because it's Billie Eilish, because like that's not a reason to dislike a song. And like I like some of her songs. I like some of her music.
But, I honestly have no idea what she does.
That song "Bad Guy."
I don't know.
I guarantee if you heard something, you'd probably be like, "Oh yeah, that's her." Like it's
maybe
it's one of those things. Just like it doesn't quite feel like a Bond song. It just kind of feels like it's almost like it's not grandiose enough. It's very. To me, it was very subtle, but and a little too subtle for it. And like I know you can have that, but there's always got to be some kind of like grandiose and badassery to it. Like there's got to be something extra to it, and that's where it just felt like it was lacking. Because even if you look at like Writing on the Wall, it had good instrumentation to it. Skyfall,
it really did.
Great vocals and instrumentation. Writing on the Wall, I like that we're completely skipping over Quantum, but like.
That was done by Jack White and I want to say Alicia Keys, right?
And like
it was not it's not the worst song, but it was not. Like,
it's a Jack White
either.
song. It's White Stripes. Yeah. It's not. It's... Now
that I think about it, it's not that bad.
But
it's not as good as the other ones were.
That riff we just sang is the most interesting part about that song.
Yeah.
To me, at least. Again,
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I guess another question I have out of curiosity here is... I'm sorry, I'm just throwing several question of the days at you. But they're all music related.
That's cheating, but I'll allow it. I'll allow it.
If you could pick an artist to write a Bond song, who would you pick? Who would you want to see write a Bond song?
Very interesting. Let's see. I don't know. You go first.
I honestly, like, I put a lot of thought into it. And, like, there's obviously, like, of course, like, the metalhead in me is like, yeah, like, pick a metal artist. But, like, no. Like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make any sense. Honestly, for me, if I had to pick someone just in the music industry right now who I think could do a good job, it would be Ed Sheeran. The dude has a diverse range, and I think he could actually, like, he would know how to write a really good Bond song. I think he could.
And he's English or Scottish or
Irish, I think.
Irish. I don't know. He's one of those things up there in those islands.
But no, like it's one of those things that I really feel like listening to his albums over the years, like, yes, he's a soft folksy guy sometimes, but he also writes really good pop music. On his newest album, Collaborations, he has a really good rock song. Like, the dude has range, and I think I think if you gave him, like, hey, write a Bond song, he would write a really good Bond song. I think, honestly, that's where, to me, I think he's the best choice in the modern era I'm trying to think of who else you would. Like, I'm not caught up with a bunch of, like, artists. Like, my music knowledge isn't as good as it used to be.
Yeah, that's the thing for me. Like, especially when you're talking about modern music, that the last couple of years of my life, like, I've really been into, like, classic rock just because of the station that I've been working at, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I haven't honestly been caught up on, like, a lot of, like, the more, like, recent pieces of music, I guess. So I'm not exactly sure. Especially when it comes to artists, like, I feel for the most part, like, I don't want to just say anyone could make a Bond song. But I mean,
yeah, I wouldn't say
as long as they're
anybody.
talented, man, like, as long as they have the talent and the vocal range to do it, then I'm okay with it. Like, I don't specifically feel like this person or this person or this person would make a great song. Because everyone's songs vary, right? Doesn't matter what artist you're talking about. Some artists make some great music. Sometimes they make some pretty shit music. So anytime you're asking them to make a specific piece of music, there's a 50-50 chance that could be great or it could be shit. You know what I mean?
That
like,
sense.
even when you're looking at, like, old bands, right? You look at, like, Bon Jovi or something. Like, their music back in the day, classic. Their music, more modern takes, have been not so classic, right? Just to put it gently in that type of terms, right? So everyone has, like, their highlights of their career and their lowlights. So honestly, like, as long as you're just bringing in the best person for the job as far as talent goes, that's going to give you your best chances of success, right? It's like actors and performers. Like, there's no... like, what actor would be great for this role or that role? It's like, as long as someone talented is in that role, because you never know what's going to ultimately come out of it. But if you bring in the talent, you're going to have your best chances and opportunity for the best results. So that's kind of how I feel about it. I know it's kind of like a cheap out of that question, because I don't really specifically can't think of anyone right now who would be like, that would be a great Bond person. Like, I like Adam Levine. Like, his music's great.
Oh no, yeah, he actually also would have been a good choice. Vocally
so, like,
speaking.
I could see, yeah, like, I could see him making a great Bond song as well. But again, there you're talking about talent, right? Like, at the end of the day,
Foo Fighters, that would be an interesting one.
That, like,
That
yeah,
would be
and there's so many
interesting.
because of the variation of Bond music throughout the history of time, there's no set really genre that would be like, wow, that like, it has to be in this genre in this box. Some of them are way out of the box. Some of them are very close to what Bond really is, right? Like, again, you look at my two choices. You Know My Name from Casino Royale and Skyfall from, obviously, Skyfall. Two vastly different pieces of music, but both equally pretty freaking awesome. So yeah, I think Foo Fighters would be great. Maroon 5 I think could do a great job, but again, as long as you're bringing in the talent, I don't mind. And Billie Eilish, I guess she's really talented. Again, I can't pick any of her music off the top of my head, but I haven't been in that. I don't know if I'm really her target audience in the end of the day anyway.
Maybe.
I would say I'm probably not. Like, I don't know. I do like most kinds of music. Like, I'm not, like, you know, so I guess maybe it would be. It depends on the actual song itself. But, you know, she's won a lot of awards, so clearly she's very talented. So bring in the best talent, man. And hopefully we get the best results.
You know who I'd love to see write a Bond song?
Who's that?
Madonna. I think that she possibly could write a Bond song eventually.
Sherry did a Bond song.
No, she made Die Another Day, and that is not a Bond song. That is a train wreck. At what point, aside
she
from
was already
saying,
in there, too late, man, too late.
Aside from saying the
you
title
get
of the
one
movie,
shot.
aside from saying the title of the movie, what about Die Another Day makes it a Bond song? Like, that's the one. Like, out of everything I've listened to...
what makes anything a Bond song,
No,
though?
that's the thing. Any other ones I listen to, they kind of, like, to me, it makes sense. I mean, like, honestly, Die Another Day as a movie, like, we'll get to that. It doesn't make sense as a Bond. It's such a weird movie. It's such a product of its time. But, like, the song just, like, it feels like they wrote the movie and then saw Madonna was making a song called Die Another Day, and then they decided afterwards to name the movie Die Another Day so they could use her song. And that's how it feels to me. And it just is, oh man, it's just so weird. It's just such a weird song. It's catchy, I won't deny that. It gets stuck in my head, but not in like one of those good like
Die another day.
Yep.
Die another day.
I mean, maybe the music video doesn't help either, because like that's something that
boom 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 boom. No, it's kind of a Bond song.
So you disagree with me? You disagree with my assessment?
I would say so. Like, well, I don't think it's way out there.
Well, I'm afraid
as far as like some of the Bond songs I've heard, like honestly, there is really no set structure to them. It does kind of have like like it does have like a very spy feel, and again, a product of the time, right? And all the songs are a product of their time, like more than anything, more than they're necessarily associated with James Bond. They're more associated with their time.
Honestly, yeah, I think as much as I may dislike the song or it might annoy me, I think you're right, and I think I'm wrong. I can admit that. I will admit you are right in this situation. I can't be friends with you anymore, but
well, that's it for the podcast. We'll see you guys later. Thanks for joining us. We will not be back next week.
Why'd you guys break up over the podcast? Madonna. It's all Madonna's fault.
It's all Madonna. It's all Madonna. But no, like, I mean, you can have your point of view too. Like that's fine. You don't have to agree with me at all.
It's not so much that I don't think the song is necessarily. I don't think it's a bad pop song, because it does what it needs to do. It's a song and it gets stuck in your head. Just when I think of Bond, I don't really think of like techno. And like that's the best way I can describe the tone of that song is techno.
Yeah, it's very.
And like it's just not something that like that's the one genre. Like if they got Skrillex to make a Bond song, would you be pretty upset?
I don't know, man. So, like I've been upset with Bond songs like that have nothing to do with techno. So I just flip a coin, man. Flip a coin.
I mean, that's fair.
It depends what they bring out.
Unless Bond is like kicking butt to techno music or to dubstep, then I'd be fine with that. That's honestly like, but I'm cool with it. I'm cool with that. With like honestly, when it comes to dubstep in movies, as long as there's an action sequence going along with it, then I'm like, yeah, this is kind of great. And it's I have a weird relationship with techno. It's just it's catchy and I love it, but I also hate it because it's just like it's noise. But I don't like it. Where's the musicality? It's just a computer.
You're getting old, man. You're getting old.
Oh no, I've had these feelings for a while.
You're getting old.
I mean, like, yes, I know I'm getting old. You don't need to remind me. But not as old as Bond is.
That's true. But yeah, anyway, that's it. I think that's good. Any other thing to
anything to add about the question of the day? Anything to do with the music?
No. I think we covered that pretty good. At least I did. I don't know. You feeling any?
Hey, yeah, no. I feel like
unresolved issues on the music.
No, because at the end.
Or are you doing good, man?
At the end of the day, if I ever want to get angry about bomb music, I just gotta listen to Live and Let Die and just not care anymore.
Let the rest of the world fade away, man.
Exactly.
Just live and let die.
Well, it's when I was young, and is it when you were young and your life
was an open book? Yeah.
I used to say
live and let live. You know you did. You know you did. You know you did. Yeah. In this ever-changing world in which we live in, won't you give it a try? Try. Bum, bum, bum. Say, live and let die. Boom. Boom. Yeah, that's classic, man.
So good, man. It's so good. But arguably, I guess against my own argument, that one technically doesn't feel like a Bond song.
Technically, no. It does fit somewhat the movie, like the actual style of that film.
Well, and yeah, I love Live and Let Die. Honestly, just as a movie, it's so good. It's so good. But I think that's it for the question of the day. Do we want to move on to? Let's move on to the main topics here. We're gonna head into our Bond segments, and we're gonna start right from the top. Sean Connery, the name's Bond, James Bond. What do you like about him?
Okay,
I think that was good. I'm a Scottish man playing, and he's a Scottish man playing a British man.
as a Scottish man.
He's also played
more or less
an Irish man. Sean Connery just plays Sean Connery. Let's be real here, man. Like
Sean Connery's just gold at the end of the day, man. He's just gold.
Did you know, speaking of gold and Sean Connery, did you know that he's in a Disney movie? Like, as a young man?
Really?
Yeah, he's in a movie called Darby O'Gill and the Little People, and it's about leprechauns. It's on Disney Plus, and you should check that out.
No, interesting.
Yeah, it's an old movie. I like it because it used to traumatize me because there's like a banshee in it, and it's kind of freaky. But like, yeah, he was a Disney star for at least a movie. Before, I think that was pre-Bond. I'm pretty sure as well.
Okay.
But I really like Sean Connery's portrayal of Bond. However, there are a lot of products of his time that also come with Sean Connery's Bond.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah,
that's saying it one way. Yeah.
Well, I think the best way to illustrate it is in From Russia with Love. He's like chilling with a lady down by the beach or something like that, and then he's like gets a phone call and he's talking to her and she's talking to the person on the phone and she's trying to flirt with him, and then like he slaps her hand really really hard. But it's like they added a punch sound effect to that slap. And so it's just like... Yeah, like it's just like... It's one of the most like... It's not an intense moment, but it's like, why is that sound in there? And I think that illustrates the problem with old school Bond. Because there's just a lot of sexism. I'll admit that. I'll admit that's a problem with Bond. But it's like... It's almost become a good lesson in what not to do.
That's a great idea, yeah.
So, but honestly though, his performance is still good. He's got the charm to it. He's got a very chill nature about him when it comes to that. And like you could believe that he can throw down in a fight too. Like that's...
100%, yeah. I think Sean Connery, for me, as far as Bonds go, he's definitely one of my favorite. I think between him and Daniel Craig, I think you're looking at the most honest portrayal of Ian Fleming's idea of who James Bond is, like, as a character. Sean Connery, especially once you start getting to the Rodger Moore era, and you look back at Sean Connery, you're like, oh yeah, he's definitely a lot more colder and calculated, like, as a character.
Yeah.
There's not that warmth. And that, like, he is suave in his own way, or, like, charming in his own way, but it's not a warm, charming. Like, he is very cold. He is very calculating. He is a womanizer, and not in a good way. You know, I don't know if there's a good way to be that.
I don't think there's a good way to be a womanizer. I feel like that's just not...
But not a movie where you're just like, oh, yeah, man, that guy's dope. You're, like, when you watch it nowadays, you're like, damn, that seems not right. That's not cool. Like, but again, a product of his time, right? Like in a very extreme way. But yeah, he's probably one of my favorite iterations of Bond because I'm more of a fan for the cold, calculated assassin agent, Cold War era type.
Although, like,
spy guy.
I wouldn't say I don't think he's a really good spy or assassin because, like, and it's right from the get-go. He really likes to just introduce himself to people.
And like, the name's Bond, James Bond.
By the time that you get to Rodger Moore and past that, it's like, and people are like, everyone knows who he is. They're like, your reputation precedes you, and it's like, aren't you supposed to be a secret agent?
Like, everybody knows about the guy. You're like, okay,
but no one knows what he looks like,
man. Yeah, that's a fair point. 007.
Do you have a preferred Sean Connery Bond film to watch? Do you have a favorite at all, or not so much?
Oh, Goldfinger, hands down, man. Goldfinger is my favorite Sean Connery film. Like, I love his portrayal of the character, and his films are generally pretty good. Obviously, again, product of their time, but Goldfinger was standout, even among his movies.
Dude, like, honestly, even Goldfinger as a villain is amazing.
Yeah.
Like the laser scene where it's like, oh, you expect me to talk?
No, Bond, I expect you to die. Yeah.
It's just moments like that. Odd Job is great in it. It's prime Bond, in my opinion. Like, I think it's just like, if you need to know who Bond is, if you had to show someone a Bond film so they know who and what Bond is, I think Goldfinger is the best one to show them.
I 100% agree, especially with that. It was the first, I was going to say, it's the first movie where Bond was really Bond, the Bond that we know. Like, you have, like, a lot of the gadgets, the kind of out of this world type of villain, right? Like, while he was grounded, he was still, like, he was using a laser and he was going to kill him. You know what I mean? Like, so these kind of out of, like,
just use a gun.
Yeah, like, dude, just kill him, man. Just shoot him, man. Like, just shoot him.
Look, I got a gun in my room. I can go get it. We can shoot him right now. We can do it together.
Like, let's just do it. But these above human villains, right? Like, these kind of out of this world, exaggerated type villains. You have these crazy henchmen who can, like, cut off heads with hats and, like, the gadgets and everything. I think I mentioned the gadgets already, but the story itself was really solid. The acting was solid. The characters were solid. I think it is just the, again, epitome of what James Bond is. And when we think of James Bond, that was the first movie. Because Dr. No was good, From Russia was good, but this was the one that really took everything and put it together, and we're like, that is James Bond.
Well, I feel like Dr. No and From Russia set up things that led to that, because Dr. No had a good main villain, right? They had a good kind of over the top villain. From Russia had, like, that train fight. That entire sequence on the train is amazing. But I don't really remember anything other than that. And, like, that's where I think from Goldfinger, when that happened, it just, like, it reached what Bond was. And then every Bond film after that has been trying to be Goldfinger.
That's that goal, right? Like, that's the standard.
Because, like,
the golden standard of Goldfinger.
Because Thunderball is good. I like Thunderball well enough. You Only Live Twice, I need to address briefly because it's one of the most insensitive moments in Bond history where they, for some reason, decided that James Bond needed to dress in yellowface for some reason.
Ooh, I didn't see that one. That was one I haven't seen.
It's, like, I guess watch it because it's Bond, but at the same time, like, be prepared for him to, like, full-on haircut, makeup, and everything, and it's just...
Oh my god.
It's not okay. Like, it's not...
Again, product of the time, right?
It just... I watch it, and it just makes me uncomfortable, but it's... Again, it's... Look at it from a learning tool of, like, yeah, that's not okay, and, like, that's... It's just... It's not... Like, it's not... You're not missing anything by not seeing it.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't think so. Like, it's one of those ones of, like... There are a few Bond films you can skip and you're not missing anything, and You Only Live Twice is one of them. Like, it's still fun, and I think that's the first... The problem, too, though, is that's the first appearance of Blofeld.
Like, yeah. And
so it's, like, it's a shame that, like, the first appearance of, like, your major bad guy, who's, like, gonna be this overarching foil
villain.
For Bond, is introduced in one where it's, like... And racial insensitivity, okay. Like, it's just, it's... I don't know, man. Sometimes movies just don't age well. I think that's the best way to remember that.
Well, yeah, right? And as a culture, we've definitely grown so much in the last, 40 to 60 years, give or take, right? And since that movie came out, 60 years, I guess, from the 20s, roughly. I guess that came out, I think, in 67 or so, somewhere around there. Yeah. But how much things have changed, right? And the culture and the way that what was acceptable back then was very different, right? And I guess it's kind of a nice way to show how much we have grown since those days. And we're like, that is not right. Like, that, there's something wrong there. Like, if we were like, yeah, no, it's all good, then that maybe would be a problem.
I feel like Daniel Craig isn't going to make an appearance in Yellowface anytime soon. I just feel like that's going to be a thing that we're...
Watch the next movie, we'll be like, what the hell?
What's going on?
Yeah, no, I don't
sanctioned this? But it's like, again, you can have... But I think the argument could be... Like, someone could try and make the argument, oh, it's because it was set in Asia. But, I mean, like, Bond has had how many films set in Asia now? And they've never done that again. They've never gone back to that. And I think it's
because it was not a good call. I think even for the time, it probably after that they're like, yeah, maybe not the best call.
Yeah, because again, it's just it's it's just insensitivity, and it's just like there's no reason for it other than like he's undercover. But I mean, like,
you could be undercover as a white guy.
Yeah, I'm a tourist. Okay, and like, does it matter anyway since he introduces himself all the time?
Yeah, that's true. I'm undercover. What's your secret name? Bond. James Bond. That's your actual name.
I mean, they never gave me one.
John Bond.
John Bond.
Jimmy
Jovi.
Bond.
No,
John
Bond.
John Bond and Jovi. Classic. And then you have to have Bon Jovi doing the theme song for that one. Just have to do it at that point. Anyway.
No, that wouldn't be a bad choice either. Like, it's back to the
maybe like back in the 80s, man. Back in the 80s, like not so much now.
I feel like if you gave them, like, again, I think it shouldn't be that hard to write a Bond song. If you give them the parameters, I feel like it's a very doable and achievable goal.
Yeah.
I demand I demand that Matt writes a Bond song. It is up to you now. You have to do this now. I've made a claim, and you're more musical than I am. Maybe.
Thank God no one watches this.
Don't worry, Matt. I'll come back to Saskatoon and I'll pressure you into it. We'll write one together.
Yeah, that'd be a bad call. That'd be a bad choice. Bad choice. You got to find someone talented. You know, I was just saying that. Just saying that. Anyway,
I mean, you're a talented guy, aren't you?
Not that talented.
Oh man, that's just sad. That's just sad. Why are you so mean to yourself, man?
It's reality, man. It's reality. Anyway, let's get back to Sean Connery and not making Matt try and make him Bond.
What a hairy chest Sean Connery had. Holy crap. That man was hairy.
Oh, dude, he was
man. I think any villain just needed to set up like a Velcro wall and get him shirtless, and they could have stopped him.
That's it, man. Game over. Yep. Game over. Bond lost.
Life is now over for Bond. He has been captured by Velcro, and out of sheer embarrassment, now he's dead.
That would be the worst. One of the interesting things about Connery is how he left the role, and no other Bonds have done this. He left the role and then came back to the role for a movie. Because on Her Majesty's Secret Service, which was George Lazenby, which we just, I don't know, whatever. Maybe we'll talk about some point. Whatever. But then after that, Diamonds Are Forever, Sean Connery came back to play the role again. And then,
he came back
many years later, he came again. Third time, we'd never say never again. It wasn't an official Bond film, though. Like, it wasn't an Eon production. It was some weird copyright thing.
I think it's a remake, isn't it? Isn't it a remake of a different... No. I want to say it's a remake of another Bond story.
I can't remember. I know Casino Royale was a remake of another Bond story.
Remember how we used Google last time?
Yeah, you should Google it.
I think it's a...
But then he did one that... But it wasn't an official Bond film like the ones that we have in that were produced by Eon.
The weird thing is, I'm pretty sure it's a remake of a Bond film that he did. I think it's...
It might have been.
I'm pretty sure about that. Yeah, it's a remake of Thunderball. He did Thunderball twice. I don't know, and we haven't seen it. We've been planning to watch it for a while, but also apparently the title is a reference to Connery saying in 1971 that he would never again play. Yeah. So they named the movie after that. That's great. That's amazing.
That's a winning movie when
apparently it's not bad. From what I've heard, apparently it's not the worst Bond film. I'm curious about it. I'm really, we've been meaning to watch it for a while. So, I don't know. At some point I'll watch it and I'll report back to you. But, have you seen it or no?
No, I haven't seen it, no.
How have neither of us seen that?
Because, it's not, an official Bond film, right? It's definitely its own other thing.
It's its own beast.
Yeah, but it was done by a different production company. Someone somehow got the rights to it. I don't know, some kind of loophole, and they made that film. So it's That's not insane. Under the the Eon Bond films that we think of as Bond films. It was this kind of its own entity.
Yeah.
Over on the side there, But it's just interesting that he came back to do that again. Yeah, no, I thought he was a good Bond. I thought he was very cold, calculating.
Well, he set the standard.
I liked the character and the design, and he did. He is the OG James Bond in film.
When you can see, to me, I think you can see a lot even with Daniel Craig. There's a lot of parallels between the two. Also, like, this is maybe just a total side note, but, like, have you ever noticed, like, Bond's always been, like, in shape, but never been, like, jacked?
Ripped?
Like, he's never been an action hero. He's just been, like, he's got, like, that barrel chest kind of thing going on, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you wouldn't want to mess with him, but at the same time, you're not intimidated because he's, like, big and brawny. Like, he's
well, he has to fit into a lot of places, right? Like, you wouldn't be a great super spy if you were just, like, jacked and you're, like, 8 feet wider than the next guy. Like, that person's probably like, Jaws doesn't fit into a crowd, right?
But if you think about it, no one would suspect that person's a spy. They're obviously
counterproductive.
They're too conspicuous. They clearly can't be a spy. That's what you think.
Interesting.
I like to make justifications for things. It's probably false. It's probably all.
Any other thoughts on Sean Connery?
Connery. Honestly, I like his
James
films.
Bond.
I like his films. I like who he set up Bond as. There are problems with it, and I think that's going to be with any old films that we talk about. There's a lot of problems with a lot of old films, but I think it's realizing that those old films, while that's a thing and that's problematic, recognizing that, but not dismissing them as what they were.
Exactly. Like, even you look at old Disney films, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff in there that's definitely from the time, right? That a lot of those, like, old animations were made, and you're like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe slightly uncomfortable, but it is what it is.
I don't think we're going to be getting a special edition of Songs of the South anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Right?
I think, and that's cool. That's fine. I'm good with it. Let's leave that.
I don't think so either. But yeah, we got to remember some of these films are definitely going to be products of their time for sure. But yeah, no, Sean Connery, great Bond, the OG. And I really enjoyed his films for the most part. Goldfinger was definitely the best. Yeah, by far 100%. For me. Like, the other ones were pretty good, but Goldfinger is it's memorable. It's a different standard. Yeah.
You remember it. You remember, like, even thinking about it now, I remember pretty well all of Goldfinger.
Well, yeah, let us know what you guys think of Sean Connery's Bond, James Bond.
Do you feel that the Rodger Moore films are products of their time as well, or not as much? Do you think they aged better and are a bit more timeless, or do you think there are still, like, a lot of problematic stuff?
I think there's less. Sorry, I'll let you finish. Go on.
No, that was my question. Basically, do you feel like there's less stuff to, like? 'Cause I think the problem for me is always like when it comes to handling women in the Bond films has kind of been a problem up until a certain point. And, like, I feel like it's, like, I think Rodger Moore's the one where, like, basically every single Rodger Moore film ends with him sleeping with the Bond girl.
Making out with the chick or something. Yeah.
And M is watching. M always ends up watching. It's like, Bond? And he's like...
It's so weird.
Like, yeah, like, it just happens. It's just like...
Oh, man.
And I don't know why. I don't know why that's a theme in the Rodger Moore ones. I love Rodger Moore. I think that he's a great Bond. I think he has some of the best Bond films out there, but he also has some of the weirdest and worst ones. But, like, I feel like he upped the charm factor. He's the one who, like, when it came to him seducing women specifically, you believed he could actually seduce women, as opposed to, like, I'm gonna use brute force here. Like, it's...
yeah. Instead of Connery's just kind of... Yeah, like, he was a bit more cold, calculating, bit more of a dick.
Like, Rodger Moore would bring a girl flowers, right? Rodger Moore would bring flowers, whereas Sean Connery would bring whiskey for himself. That's the difference. That's exactly the difference. You're right. I think his movies have less of an issue. I think, because especially you're starting to get into, like, the 70s and the 80s, especially at the kind of closer to the end of his run. So again, times change, right? Things become different, and I think they're less of an issue. I think there's still some weird things, but I think there's still some weird things, but it definitely wasn't Sean Connery uncomfortable. Level of, like, yeah, it's
like, Sean Connery, like you said, Sean Connery brings, like, whiskey for himself. Rodger Moore bring flowers. Sean Connery's almost felt like he was, again, that aggressive, forceful male presence, where Rodger Moore, he brought the charm, man. He brought the charm. And again, to his credit as James Bond, he brought that warmth, that suave. I don't know what the word is. Suave?
Well, no, it's like this. Like, I think that suave carried over into like Brosnan's.
The suave. Oh, for sure.
Like
100%, right? Like that's obviously where that kind of came from too. I think Rodger Moore, he brought the warmth, he brought the charm to the character. Instead of being so cold and calculating, he was sympathetic, he was comforting, but he also could kill people. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't doubt he could kill people and do the thing Bond needed to do, but there was also just that warmth and that charm, and that's really what he brought to the character.
No, 100%. Like, there's an evolution with that character, and that's kind of the cool thing to see, because I think, especially after 5 films of just the same, essentially the same
guy.
Way of, not even the same guy, but like,
same
5
type
films
of
the same technique of way to handling the situations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many people can Bond just punch in the face to get what he wants?
Yeah.
Like,
well, as many as required, I guess.
Like, and that's, but then you have Rodger Moore, who's a little more like. Here's the thing, though. I'm gonna shoot myself in the foot because it's like, he's more subtle, and then I'm remembering like the boat chase in Live and Let Die, where it's like, hey, we're in the water, and now 60% of this chase is on land, because that's apparently how boats work in this universe.
Yeah.
Okay. But like, speaking, like, honestly though, Live and Let Die is probably my favorite Bond film, just because it has that, like, you know how Goldfinger had that setup of what Bond is?
Mm-hmm.
I felt Live and Let Die had the natural progression of what Bond was. Like, it just, like, if you go from Goldfinger to Live and Let Die, I feel like those films tie in together. I feel like there's a good stepping point, because it's just as exciting, it's as entertaining, and it feels like Bond. It feels like a Bond movie, right? And then you go to Moonraker pretty well right after that, and it's just like, or no, I guess this Moonraker's a bit
it's Man with a Golden Gun after that, Spy Who Loved Me, then Moonraker.
And then Moonraker...
like, yeah. that there's something about the Rodger Moore films, like, they're so... Like, they start out much more serious...
and then just go...
I mean, you're talking Live and Let Die, you're talking Man with the Golden Gun, even Spy Who Loved Me. Like, there's a lot more serious elements to it, but as they continue to go along, they just kind of get goofier and goofier till you reach, like, the peak, which is Moonraker, right? Like, that movie was so silly. I was like, holy shit.
Like, there's a chase at the beginning, and then they, like, drive past a pigeon, and this pigeon does a double take. Like, out of every like, you could have had an actor do, like, a double take. That's fine. Why is a pigeon like, wait, what did I just see? That's not how animals work. That's not how pigeons work. Like, okay. And then
Moonraker was very silly. I was like, is this an actual movie that I'm watching right now, or is this a spoof? It felt like a spoof Bond film almost. Like, not even
Jaws. Jaws needs to have a love story for some reason.
Yeah, and he came into the movie before, right? Spy Who Loved Me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he was in Moonraker as well.
And then they gave him an arc, and it's like, I've changed my ways, and I love a woman. And it's like, okay, all right.
Like, whatever you say, man, whatever you say.
Okay, yeah, you can do what you want, man. Like, your Jaws, you tell me you're in love, you can break my neck. Like, either one, like, whatever you want to do. Like, but Man with the Golden Gun is fun. It's one I forget about a lot. Christopher Lee is the bad guy.
Christopher Lee, right? Yeah. That was probably... I don't know if that was my favorite one. It's between that and A View to a Kill. Like, I liked View to a Kill. He was considerably older, and you could see his age coming in for sure with that film. Because that had Christopher Walken in it, right?
Was he the oldest Bond?
He was, he played... He's definitely made the most films. When it was 85, 73 to 85, so...
Over 10 years.
He was closest. I think Daniel Craig's actually the longest one.
But I mean, like, was he oldest? Like, what age?
Oh, age-wise? Yeah. Yeah. Like, by the time he got to A View to a Kill, I think he was the oldest one. Maybe you could argue Connery and Never Say Never Again or something like that, but again,
doesn't really count.
Doesn't really count, but yeah, no, I think he was the oldest one. And that one ended with like an axe fight on the Golden Gate Bridge, right? Like that movie was pretty slick. I liked that movie. It was
honestly,
silly,
I don't remember it.
It was fun.
Like it's the ones I remember. Man with the Golden Gun a little bit, mainly not Sean Connery, mainly Christopher Lee hunting around with that golden gun.
Yeah,
that's about it. But I remember mostly Live and Let Die and Moonraker. And like,
just because Moonraker is so odd.
I thought it honestly growing up, I always thought it was gonna be my favorite, and then I watched it, and I'm like, why? Why are you? None of this makes sense.
Like I said, it felt kind of like a spoof Bond film than an actual Bond film. Like it was so silly. It was so silly, but yeah, product at the time, 79, right? Things were silly.
So, but for you, it's Man of the Golden Gun and View to a Kill. That's your.
I think those are like my two top. Like I like Live and Let Die too. It just, I don't know, it just didn't always work for me. Like as a film,
that's fair.
It was okay
because it is.
I'm not a big fan.
I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, it is, and I'm not a big fan of like the. I don't know, Louisiana Bayou voodoo type stuff.
I guess so.
Situation, right? Like that wasn't really what I was looking for in a Bond film. Like I didn't hate it or anything, but I liked Man with the Golden Gun better and A View to a Kill. Those were.
I think I also just love that opening though, where it's like the funeral procession that I think it's a funeral procession turns into the parade where it's like, whose funeral is this? Yours, and they kill the guy, and like that's an that was pretty slick sequence. Yeah, like that's what I like about it though, is like there's really slick sequences, there's really good sequences. The puns, the death puns, I think probably play a factor for me as well, because like,
oh, we haven't even talked about those. Dude,
because those started.
We haven't even talked about those. Like those are hilarious. Even Connery had some great ones. Shocking, absolutely
shocking, isn't it?
Shocking. That was amazing. Shocking.
Like, and I think I want to say actually, like that probably made, to be honest, Bond probably started the whole action hero one-liner thing. If I'm really thinking about it, like,
yeah, I would say,
because I'm trying to think of action heroes who had one-liners before that. Like obviously, like Stallone and Arnie have like some of the most iconic ones, but like, if it wasn't for Bond, like I don't think that those would exist.
But yeah, I mean, ultimately, kind of what we're talking about. Like Rodger Moore brought the warmth, he brought the charm to the character, and I really enjoyed his take on Bond. Where Connery was more savage and brutal, Rodger Moore was definitely more charming and, I don't know, charismatic, I guess you could say, at the end of the day, especially when it came to Bond. And that those two frameworks of James Bond really blended well and worked with the characters and the actors to come, as far as making their own renditions of Bond as well.
Well, I feel like I was going to ask you, like, when do you think that Bond really became his own thing? Like, at what point do you think, like, Bond the character became, or do you think he has ever reached a point where it's like, this is always going to be what Bond is?
I think it changes actor to actor, and I think we've seen that consistently every time someone takes the mantle. I think Sean Connery started one way, and Rodger Moore's Bond is very different. And I think over time, people have kind of picked and chosen what they want over, like, out of those two kind of like frameworks, and they blended them together, right? Like, especially we're talking about Pierce Brosnan and how he really took those two frameworks and blended them pretty well together. He leans a bit more towards Rodger Moore's side than he does Sean Connery, whereas Daniel Craig leans a bit more to
Sean
Connery's variant of Bond than Rodger Moore.
Well,
but there's one guy I want to talk about too, really quick. I know we're going to move on to Pierce Brosnan right away, but what do you guys think of Rodger Moore's films and him as a James Bond? Let us know what you think down in the comments section below. But I do want to talk about Timothy Dalton really quick, Can we break off and talk about him quick? He was only in 2 films.
I can allow it, Matt. I guess
we also dodged George Lazenby or whatever.
George Lazenby.
Lazenby. He was in one, and neither of us watched it.
Yeah, we put it on, got 20 minutes in, and we turned it off. We want to watch it because we want to actually make an educated opinion on it, but it's rough. But apparently, from what I gather, though, you either love it or you hate it. Because there's a lot of people out there who really like that one. And there's a lot of people out there who are like, no, it's not Bond. It's just such a weird, divisive feel to it. And I need to watch it because it's my duty as a film guy to force myself to watch it. But also, I don't wanna do it.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, we have no opinion on what he is, so we can't really talk on that, but he was only in 1 film, so we're just gonna move past him. But Timothy Dalton was in at least 2 movies, so I do just kind of want to touch on him as well. Just two, The Living Daylights and License to Kill. Have you seen either of those 2 films?
I've seen them both. Okay. Honestly, though, the most memory I have with Timothy Dalton's Bond is, and I can't remember which one it is. I know there's Felix gets his legs eaten off or something like that.
Yeah, he gets sharks. That was License to Kill.
And then
I don't know if he got his legs eaten off or not, but he did get injured for sure.
There's something to do with him and sharks, and then he goes on a revenge thing. But honestly, man, the only real memory I have of that is anytime you would sing the License to Kill theme, and you'd always just call out the fact that it sounds like they're singing License to Kilt. Yeah. So now anytime I hear that title, I just hear License to Kilt, and I'm like, yeah, it's a License to Kilt.
Well, it is weird, because they're like, License to Kilt, and then there's it ends with a t, and I'm like, what are you doing? Because an L doesn't end with the, even if you're using a D or a T, those are the only 2 kind of sounds that make that, that hard cutoff like that. And I'm like, an L doesn't do that. Well, it would just be License to Kill. It would be License to Kill.
They're not leading into another word that starts with a T or a D.
No,
that's the end of the sentence.
It is it's talking about weird Bond songs, right? It sounds like License to Kill, and I'm like, I don't know why. Guess that was a creative decision, but it's strange. But no, I didn't mind him as James Bond either. He's not anywhere near my favorite. He was a lot more dry. He was dry. He was a pretty dry Bond. There wasn't a lot of charm to him either.
I've liked him better in other movies.
The actor
I've seen him in. Because, Timothy Dalton in Hot Fuzz is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Him in, we actually watched The Rocketeer, which is just, talking about 90s movies that I never talked about. I hadn't seen that one until this year. And, it's the same director as Captain America, the first Avenger.
Okay, yeah.
And watching the 2 of those movies, you can totally see why he was picked to direct the first Avenger, because holy crap, it's awesome. The Rocketeer is it's an excellent, cheesy, great 90s film. And he plays the bad guy in it.
Mm-hmm.
But he has so much charm just oozing off of him that, where was that? I don't know where that was in the Bond films, unless I just missed it by not paying attention, but, I feel like I'd remember. Because he was dark. I remember him getting, pretty,
He was a pretty dark Bond, yeah. I said, he was Sean Connery, but then, further. As far as that coldness and brutality goes, yeah.
Because he was a killer. That's the best way I could put it. He was just, he was all about the killing, and, that seems, to me, that seems weird as a Bond. As a Bond fan, as a Bond character, that seemed kind of, it didn't seem to fit. He never really, I know he wore the tux, but I don't remember him wearing the tux.
Yeah, he wore the tux in a couple times, yeah.
But I don't, I remember him more in just, casual wear, and it's just, and again, maybe it's a product of the time, because that was the late 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah, 87, 89, yeah. So you got your big action hero type things. Yeah.
Try and make it grittier and all that kind of stuff. So, and again, I'm all for, here's the thing. I'll go back and I'll rewatch all the Bond films. And I have. Mm-hmm. I've watched them a couple times now. I'd rewatch any of them. As silly and as bad as they get, it's still Bond. right?
Yeah, at the end of the day.
Even with Timothy Dalton as dark and gritty and weird as
I think I think gritty is the right word for it. I think that gritty is the right word for it. He was definitely a grittier Bond, yeah.
And but it works, but again as a product of his time, and it's kind of cool seeing that evolution of even going back to what we talked about last week with decade to decade, right? It's interesting. That's a franchise you can look if you want to see the progression of film. You can look at the Bond films and see just the change of film over the years.
Well, and it spans so far, not the most movies over a certain amount of time, right? But just how many decades it spans over. It's pretty incredible.
Well, because 64 to 2020.
Yep. That's still rolling.
That's ridiculous, man.
We're still rolling.
And I guarantee you they'll keep going. I don't have that doubt in my mind.
I have no fear that it's just gonna stop dead. Everyone's already talking who's the next Bond. As soon as Daniel Craig was hired, everyone's like, who's the next Bond? That's as soon as we get a new Bond, the next question is who's the next Bond? Dude, let this guy make some movies, then we'll talk about it. But we always want to know. He's become part of our culture. Really, right? And he's not the biggest, he's not the flashiest, he's not the big Marvel movies, but he is very still solid and ingrained, and he has his own following, right?
Well, again, you say James Bond to anybody, and they know who he is.
You know what's going on. Yeah,
they might not be able to name actors or movies, but they know James Bond as a character.
Yeah,
right. It's weird though because it started out didn't it? Was it a British production originally, then moved to America, or was it always an American production?
No, I feel like isn't it still a British production? Eon Entertainment or whatever.
That's the thing. I don't know if Eon's actually a British company or an American one.
It's British. All the Bond films are filmed in, are a British company, I think. And then MGM as well is in there.
But it's become so it's so weird though because it's while it's a very British thing, it's become super synonymous with American culture. It's it's bizarre, and
that's true. Well, especially the later the Pierce Brosnan ones feel very American.
Well, and actually, speaking of those too, speaking of Pierce Brosnan and segueing away from Timothy Dalton, honestly, for me, he has some of the most underrated Bond films. Because, everyone's oh, GoldenEye's amazing and the rest are terrible. And it's no, GoldenEye is really, 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 really good.
Mm-hmm.
And Die Another Day is really, 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 really bad. And Tomorrow Never Dies and The World's Not Enough are Bond films.
They're average.
They're
your
passable.
Standard fare.
I don't know why people got mad at them so much. They're still fun. They kind of bleed together because they're very similar.
They are very similar, yeah.
But again, they're more adequate Bond films than Die Another Day was, which is a shame because they had a good cast, they had a decent premise.
Man, Halle Berry,
and then they had to CG it up, man.
Honestly, I didn't even mind Die Another Day. I honestly didn't mind it. I was no, this is okay. This is cool. Whatever.
It's remember again to go back
early 2000s. That makes sense.
To go back to last week's topic, a big part of the problem for me is the CG though. It's him on the surfboard looks terrible. There's that fight that he has with the one of the henchmen, and it's they have lasers that are gonna cut them, but they obviously just had the fight. They had the fight and then added all the lasers in post to just conveniently miss them. There was no planning. It was just yeah, you guys fight. We'll do it afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay, I understand that, but also with a bit more planning, this film could have been really, 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 really good.
Mm-hmm.
And it just wasn't. It just fell flat because it was well, guys, it's Bond. Let's just make it a spectacle. And it's there's a balance with Bond between spectacle and good, I guess, if it's the best way I can put it.
Spectacle and good.
Spectacle, no, spectacle and, well, I guess that's technically it, but it's spectacle and story.
Yeah.
Right? There's a balance you have to hit, because you can have bizarre, crazy action sequences and just, again, go back to Goldfinger. He's an over-the-top villain, but the story is so good
Well, you still have to have the quiet moments too, right?
Exactly. Like
the intrigue, the mystery, the spy aspect of it, not just the explosions and the boom.
Whereas Die Another Day was 90% explosions.
You're right. There's a lot. Yeah.
And like again, like
and like a weird ice castle hotel place. That's kind of cool.
It's still entertaining. It's still fun, but like not. It's fun in the same way that Batman Forever and Batman and Robin are, right? Like it's not great, but I laugh. I have a good time.
But I laugh. But I laugh.
And I think the other reason why it's so jarring though is because on the opposite end of that spectrum, you have GoldenEye, which not only just affected like movies in general, but also video games. Like that game couldn't have happened without the movie happening and
having a really good film too, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and it was a very successful movie. Yeah.
Well, you got Sean Bean as the villain, and that was excellent story. And
dude, yeah, GoldenEye is tops. Like that is tops, man. Definitely one of the best.
Do you think GoldenEye is the best Bond movie, or do you think that still goes to Goldfinger?
Well, I don't know. It's hard for me to pick like what is the best Bond movie
because they're so different.
Period. Because they again, we said they're products of their time, and they are very different, and they do have so many, like they range for so many different things. Like if you looked at Moonraker and Live and Let Die, those are completely different types of movies. Completely different, right? So it's hard to judge and say which one is better, which one's worse. I think GoldenEye's up there, though. I think GoldenEye's up there. I try to generally, if I'm thinking the best Bond film, I think of per actor kind of thing.
Yeah.
Per time period, not necessarily overall. The best of Pierce Brosnan's Bond films is 100% GoldenEye, right? Like I think everyone can probably agree on that. The other ones, again, you said middle ground, Die Another Day. People don't like. I didn't mind at the end of the day.
Again, it's as long as you can still enjoy it.
It's hard to say if it's better than Goldfinger, though, because again, those were two completely different time periods, separated by almost 30 years, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, also, it's hard to say for me.
It's bizarre how many titles of the Bond films have gold, die, and live in them.
Yeah, a lot.
A lot.
A lot.
It's like even like the newest one, No Time to Die. It's like, there's that die theme again.
There's the dying theme. But yeah, like, and honestly, personally, I favor the Daniel Craig movies overall for the most part. Like, so if I was going to say the best one, I would probably put it in the Daniel Craig era. But then again, if I went back and watched Goldfinger, maybe I'd be like, never mind. No, it's Goldfinger. And then if I watch GoldenEye, I'd be like, no, never mind, it's GoldenEye. And then if I watch like Skyfall, I'd be like, never mind, it is Skyfall. You know, so for me, it is very, See, it depends how I'm feeling. Like, but it's definitely one of the ones up in the top.
For me, with Daniel Craig, like that's honestly, until recently, he was one of my least favorite Bonds. Like,
oh man, he was like one of my favorite right off the top. But like right off the top.
My reasoning is the fact that he didn't feel like Bond, right? He felt like a modern action hero that had the name Bond, right? And that was kind of my thing. But then the thing is, I remember when Casino Royale came out and when Quantum came out, and I remember talking to you about it, and your reasoning was because this is Bond before he was Bond, because technically it's a prequel.
That's true in the Casino, yeah. Yeah,
it's always weird because like technically Casino Royale is a prequel, but also a soft reboot, but also a sequel, and it just it's the timeline to Bond is just confusing and one that you can't ever really explain.
When we get and that's one of the things that Daniel Craig's era did that was very unique, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But yeah, I can't remember what we were talking about other than that though.
I thought we would move on to Daniel Craig, didn't we?
Oh, no. We haven't even really talked about who Pierce Brosnan was as a Bond that much. Did we?
Well,
we talked about his movies.
Well, I thought Pierce Brosnan, to me, as Bond, is Bond. Like, that's the thing, is like he was... When it comes to, like, if you want to take one character, if you want to take one actor, and you had to say that this is the face of James Bond, to me that's always going to be Pierce Brosnan, and maybe that's because I grew up with him, but just like
he was our first Bond. He was the Bond of our era, right?
But also he had such a good balance to me of Rodger Moore. You believed he could like kick some serious butt too, like Sean Connery, and like he had that. To me he had the perfect balance of it, and that's
the balance between those two.
And that's where to me I think like to me he's the ultimate Bond, but unfortunately he had not the best movies, right? But like that being said, though, I really feel like if you took Pierce Brosnan out and plopped him into any other Bond movie, he would fit. But if you took like Sean Connery and plopped him into like GoldenEye, it wouldn't work.
It wouldn't be the same, yeah.
If you took Rodger Moore and you popped him into Die Another Day, it wouldn't work. But if you took Brosnan and popped him into Goldfinger, it would still work. If you took Brosnan and put him into Live and Let Die, it would still work.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. He just kind of hit the stride of being what Bond was and who Bond is.
Like, his version was that perfect mixture, right?
Well, that's...
Of the Rodger Moore architect and the Sean Connery... Not architect. The Rodger Moore archetype and the Sean Connery archetype. And, like, blended them together in a way that really was realistic and... that worked really well, like, to the character and who James Bond was.
And to me, then, Daniel Craig was the exact opposite of that, right? Like, that to me is, like, where you have refined Bond, and then you have rough and tumble Bond. And, like...
Yeah, that's exactly...
And sure, Sean Connery and Rodger Moore did that to a point at the beginning, but both were all very clean-cut and very, like, yes, I just do my job, and that's it. But then...
Yeah.
You have these two polar opposites, being Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig, where it's very much this is Bond, and Daniel Craig almost was like the anti-Bond, where it's like he's Bond, but he's not quite there yet.
Yeah.
And that's kind of
like a proto Bond.
Yeah. So like to me, I think Brosnan to me is the epitome of what Bond is, like in my opinion. And feel free to disagree with me, people in the comments as well as yourself, like.
No, I would agree. Like, as the character of James Bond and what we know him to be, like, if you say James Bond, what's the face that shows up in most people's heads is Pierce Brosnan, right? At least from our generation, I guess. Maybe you talk different generations, it might be a different answer.
A lot Rodger Moore. A lot of it's Rodger Moore.
Yeah, Rodger Moore is really big too. Yeah, yeah. But I'm not like he's not my favorite one, but he is. Or maybe his film. I don't know. It's hard to say.
But just because...
He's probably not my favorite Bond, but I do agree that he is the final evolution of this character that's been going on since the 60s, right?
Yeah.
He really brought it all together. And then again, you go back to Daniel Craig, and it is a regression of that character, taking it back to its more raw form.
Well, that's where I think
Pierce Brosnan's more refined.
A lot of people got caught off guard by that. Because it's like they were expecting more of the same, especially, once again, also remember, the last film before Daniel Craig popped up was Die Another Day, which is arguably the silliest Bond film to come out since Moonraker. Like, yeah. And, like, so you get that silly tone, and then suddenly, like, oh, wait, we're serious. We're 100% serious. There's no gadgets, there's no goof, there's nothing. Okay, that's weird. But, like... But it works for what it is. I wish there would have been more clear of a statement as to like the direction they were moving into. But overall, I like Brosnan. I think his movies are underrated and underappreciated.
I agree with that. Let us know down in the comment section below, you guys, what you think of Pierce Brosnan as James Bond. Is he the James Bond for you? This sounds like a dating show. Behind door number 1. Is he the ultimate James Bond? Man, is that what you guys... When you hear James Bond, do you think of Pierce Brosnan?
If we were thinking in advance, we should have posed it as a Bachelor type of show.
Oh, man, that would have been great.
Well, I mean, we can...
Behind this door.
Let's postpone it for a week, and we'll just re-record everything.
Classic.
There's that saying again.
But there we go.
So, but to me, I think, honestly, though... Daniel Craig, I understand, is not Bond when he's... Like, his name is James Bond, obviously, and that's a whole... other thing that people have been analyzing for years. Is James Bond a code name? Is it just the same guy but his face looks different? What is it? And at the end of the day, the problem for me is that, yes, he might have been James Bond, but he wasn't like 007. He didn't reach that point to me until the end of Skyfall. Right? Like, he had the title, he had the name, but like, even in Casino Royale, like, he was still, even by the end of it, he still wasn't Bond. And then Quantum, I can't remember anything of. And then Skyfall is really good, but Skyfall to me almost would have been a better first Bond film for him, because by the end of that, you reach that point where he is James Bond. And then Spectre, I know a lot of people dislike it. I liked it quite a bit because to me that felt like a Bond film. You had all the things in it that made it a Bond film. And maybe that's what people disliked about it, because it was a bit predictable and it was a bit, like, traditional, but it worked. It worked as what a Bond film was. And that's...
I honestly, like, when it comes to Spectre, I watched it when it came in theaters. I haven't even seen it again since then. I don't think. And it is definitely one of the films I have to revisit, because I didn't really care for it in the theaters, but sometimes Bond grows on you afterwards, right? Well, like, sometimes in the theater, if you go in with a certain expectation, and that's not met, sometimes it's a difference, right?
But also compared to Skyfall, which was just like, if Skyfall wasn't a Bond movie, it still would have been a really, really good movie, right? Like it was a solid standalone movie, and it works without being tied to Bond. And I think maybe that's what was so jarring about it, was like, you have that finally after Casino Royale, which is a good setup and a fun movie, Quantum, which was, I don't even know how to like describe Quantum.
Quantum was
and then you get finally this point where it's like, oh, so you can have a Bond movie that's also just a really good movie, and then the movie right after that is like, and we're back to classic Bond, like. Maybe that's what just jarred people out of it. But, like, I liked it, but I like the cheesy things when it comes to Bond. I like the gadgets and the supervillains and all that kind of stuff. I like that.
Right.
Although, I'll just very much say that, because it was Javier Bardem was the villain in...
Javier Bardem. Yeah. In Skyfall.
Yeah, and he was good. His monologues were amazing. The face thing was great. Like...
Yeah.
He was a solid villain. And... Christoph Waltz was a really great Blofeld. I don't feel they did him justice by the end. But like that was the best call for that. Honestly,
and Christoph Waltz, man, come on. That guy is money. Like, when it comes to especially being the villain, he's number one a great actor, but he also plays such a good villain. Like, did you see Inglourious Basterds?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean,
like, he was amazing in that movie.
He's terrifying.
Amazing. Yeah. So even in Bond, I was totally down with him as the villain. I do remember that. I'm like, God, I love Christoph Waltz, and I was like, I wish the movie was better.
Do you think that maybe I think that was around the time where movie trailers really just started telling you everything that was going to happen in the movie? Like, because there was a few movies like that where, like, even Terminator that's the newest one, Terminator Genesis revealed the entire twist, all the twists that were going to happen in the movie in the trailer. And I didn't
even watch that movie. I was like, meh.
If you saw the trailer, you saw the movie, so don't worry about it.
Oh, fair enough.
But like, I feel like Spectre suffered from the same thing, where like the reveal that he's Blofeld, and then like everyone kind of knew. It's really weird because Blofeld was never Bond's sibling at all. Like, they were never related, right?
Yeah, and then, that was a new twist that he added in.
Austin Powers did that. Austin Powers made the joke about Austin and Dr. Evil being siblings.
Yeah.
And then Bond then essentially took what the parody made and just parroted that.
Made it reality. I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about that.
It was so weird to watch, because like, I think I even just watched Austin Powers before seeing Spectre in theaters. And it was just a really weird thing of like, oh, so did they just rip off of Bond? Like, okay, all right.
Interesting.
again, like, if it wasn't for Daniel Craig and if it wasn't for Christoph Waltz, I'd probably have more problems with it. But because of their performances and what they brought to the table as actors and as performers, just like, I bought it. I was like, okay, yeah, sure, yeah, I'm in. I'm on board.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, like, I'm curious and kind of nervous about No Time to Die, because I want it to be a Bond film again, but I want it to be a good story like Skyfall.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I
want the perfect mix
exactly
between the two.
But it
is an odd one, so it may work.
I'm worried that it's gonna be more like Quantum, even from the trailer. Like the trailer just didn't strike me as anything that got me pumped. I was intrigued and I was interested, but I wasn't like, yeah,
there's gadgets. There's gadgets. There's gadgets.
I'm fine with that. Like, that's, and hope. I mean, bringing Q back was a brilliant, smart move, and like the guy who's playing Q in the Daniel Craig series is great. I really love him. Like, he's a great actor, and I think he fits perfectly as Q.
Mm-hmm.
He's a little too serious for me sometimes. A little too, like, really sad. He's a really sad Q, whereas, like, Q's always taking a joy in his, like, work and his gadgets, but, like, this Q's very, like, I guess I'm doing this. And it's like, you work for MI6. Have some, like, enthusiasm.
Have some fun, man.
Like, because I think, wasn't it Skyfall, the only gadget we got was, like, when did he get the gun that only worked with his palm? I feel like that's Skyfall, right?
That was Skyfall, yeah.
And I feel like that was, like, the only gadget.
Well, he didn't get gadgets till Skyfall. Like, that's when Q showed up.
But that was, like, the only gadget that he got.
Mm-hmm.
And then Spectre, he got gadgets. And that's where I was like, yes, finally. Because, like, as much as Bond is an action movie or action series, it's also kind of a sci-fi series. It really is. Like, when you look at all the stuff that he has,
the
like,
gadgets and stuff,
like, they're not realistic. Like, it's a sci-fi series, and I was missing that taste of sci-fi. Like, I don't need it to be like laser beams or anything like that. Like, even though that
Moonraker,
yeah, like, there's a point where it gets a little too over the top, but there's just a nice taste of sci-fi mixed in with that action that just elevates it to what it is, right? Like, it's, and that's, I don't know, that's, for me, that's what Bond is. I know you really like Daniel Craig, and I know you have since we saw
since Casino Royale, man. I've loved Daniel Craig as James Bond, like, because to me he is a bit more the Sean Connery side. Like, just because, like, I don't know, I'm kind of weird that way, I guess. I love seeing characters before they were characters. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's why you love the prequels,
polished, and that's probably why. Wow, that's why that is one of the lures to the prequels. No, and honestly, I wasn't a fan of Solo because I didn't care who Solo was before he was Solo, because I loved Solo. Solo in Episode 4 was before he was Solo in Episode 6. You know what I mean? Like, he already was that character arc. Anyway,
I appreciate that I managed to sneak in Star Wars into our conversation today.
Yeah. Way to go, man. I didn't know if you'd be able to do it, but you did it.
You're welcome, Matt, and you're welcome, audience.
But Casino Royale, man, like, he was very brutal. He was very calculating. But he also, you know, he did have a bit of that suave, not enough. Like, he was still very raw in that form. He was very much shoot first, ask questions later. You know what I mean? Like, to get what he wanted, or beat the shit out of someone. Like, that was just.
Isn't Casino Royale a remake? Isn't Casino Royale a remake?
To a certain, or they kind of used the name. There was a Casino Royale already.
Well, isn't it a Bond one?
I can't remember if it was a Bond film. It wasn't an official one again, but it was someone made something about.
Well, something. I thought it was like more of a comedy or something like that, and then they like made
it was something weird. It was something weird. I'm not really too familiar with it.
I'll watch it at some point.
But I know this rendition of Casino Royale was my favorite overall.
So,
and
yeah, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Anyway, and I know this version of Casino Royale was just my favorite version of that, and I just loved this pre-James Bond, right? And as you go through his movies, he becomes more and more like the Bond we know. A bit more refined, a bit more styled, more gadgets. You start meeting those supporting characters, right? Every new film, they get a new one. Moneypenny starts showing up. And
Felix was in the first one,
I think Moneypenny and Q showed it up. What's that?
Felix was in the first one, though, right?
Felix was in there, yeah.
Yeah.
Felix was in the first one, but then you had Moneypenny and Q show up in Skyfall.
No,
right? So
yeah,
you start getting these. Yeah, you start getting these new characters coming in as well. So it was just, I've really enjoyed it. And the one thing about the Daniel Craig era that's different from all the others, not all the others, I guess there are that are some kind of direct sequels to one another in certain ways.
Yeah.
But all of Daniel Craig's are direct sequels.
Yeah.
They all happen, like, there's no timeline with the other Bonds. They're all just kind of usually randomly whatever. It's just a Bond movie. But Daniel Craig's are all sequels to one another. They all happen chronologically in order to, like, what's happening. Because by the time you get to Spectre, that's when you get, what the hell's his name again?
Blofeld?
Oh, yeah. Once you get to Spectre, then you get Blofeld or Christoph Waltz, right? Saying, I'm the architect of all your pain. And it kind of goes through all the movies, right? Like all his enemies and villains and things he's faced so far. Man, and yeah, and for me, Quantum of Solace is that one bump in the road for me. Like it started so great because you had this
the chase scene at the
tail
beginning.
End of yeah, and you had the tail end of Casino Royale, right? He comes and he gets Mr. White, and you're like, oh, shit's about to go down, and you pick right up after that, right?
Yeah.
And then the movie freaking does like this super sharp right turn, and now we're chasing Mr. Green, who's some sort of eco-terrorist, but it has nothing to do with the overall really plot of it, other than he's part of an organization, which later you find out is actually Spectre and not.
Well, it's like
Quantum or whatever the hell it was called.
Well, it's like that's the one thing I remember about Quantum in theaters with you and others was the car chase at the beginning.
Yeah, that was slick, man.
That's
that
all I
sick.
remember, and everything after that, I'm like, there was a lady dunked in oil, I think, but that was also pretty much just Goldfinger, but
yeah, no, that's exactly what they were going for, right?
But like, it's just one of those things of, to me, because we talked about this last night. Because my roommate said that Bond became Bond, like Daniel Craig became James Bond by the end of Casino Royale. And we watched the clip from the ending, and like I still disagree. I don't think that he was fully Bond yet. Because like,
I think that was a big step. It was a big step.
I think it was. I think again, like it didn't until the end of Skyfall. That's when it hit. But like, because to me, the thing that bugged me watching that is like, yes, he called Mr. White before shooting him, but like Bond's the kind of guy who would just like, he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't sneak around. He'd just walk right up to Mr. White and be like, "Hey, how's it going?" and then shoot him. Like,
yeah,
he doesn't need a phone call. He just go and talk to him because that's the kind of guy Bond is. He just has zero chill, man. And yet he's super calm, but like just zero like.
But like no bullshit, man, no bullshit. But I think for Quantum of Solace for me though was because you kind of had this revenge tale set up,
and then they did
for the death of his. I can't remember. Did they get married or not? No, it wasn't his wife, but his love, Vespa. I can't remember her name. Anyway. It's been a long time since I watched that movie, but they had the revenge tale set up, right? Going into Quantum of Solace. That's why I was like, oh, hell yeah, he's going to get some payback. And then all of a sudden, it's about some eco-terrorist hoarding water, and you're like, okay, what happened? How is killing this guy going to get you any sort of...
solace?
Like, revenge... Like, yeah, exactly. No, exactly. So it kind of took, like, this weird, like, sharp turn in a different direction than I thought it was going to go to, and I felt like it failed on delivering what it set up in the end of the last film.
But then Skyfall.
Skyfall came out, and that was gold, man. That was money. I loved that movie. And it, honestly, I just felt like, okay, we got 2 sequels, and now we got this standalone one, right? Like, because it really didn't reference anything that came before.
Yeah.
And then Spectre is what kind of brought that movie into the fold of the overarching story. But
and again, I think Spectre might age
better
with time.
I love Skyfall.
Skyfall, I guess it's a good mix of like. I think it works as a story because it's Bond's final journey to becoming Bond. It's the idea that by the end of that he is James Bond, and we haven't seen that with any other Bond. They've been James Bond at the very very beginning of their franchise. Daniel Craig wasn't that until the end of the 3rd movie, and that's where a part of me is worried about No Time to Die because I think that they might regress him back to how he was
just complete
Skyfall.
Brutality, right?
And and I don't want that. I want to see my character grow. I want to see my character finish his journey, right? Like,
well, especially because his era is so unique, because his Bond does have a journey, whereas all the ones are just individual. Like you said, when you watch Rodger Moore, it's like the same Bond, the same Bond, the same Bond. When you watch all the others, they're the same Bond in each one, right? Whereas Daniel Craig's James Bond is an evolution of that character across multiple films.
No, and you see him grow as a character, and I think like to regress that character would be a shame, and it would be a disservice to his performance, and like that's I think my biggest concern. But I mean, honestly, that's my concern with a lot of films. Like even like some people complain.
Fair enough.
Some people complained about that with Spectre, where they felt like, oh well,
fair enough.
He's just the same Bond as all the other Bonds were, and it's like, okay, but that's what they were working towards. That's part of his arc, right?
Right.
So I don't know. I'm still optimistic and excited for the next one.
I'm always excited, man. I'm always down for more James Bond.
It's as soon as you hear that music, man. As soon as you hear,
you're right into it. You're right into it.
As soon as that da 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 da, and then you're just like,
yeah.
Let's do some spy stuff. Man.
Yeah, it's solid. It's solid. But let us know what you guys think of Daniel Craig's James Bond. He's probably my favorite Bond. Just what they've done with him and the character choice. I really enjoy Daniel Craig as Bond. But let us know what you guys think of him as well.
I personally feel that my favorite Bond is actually Austin Powers. And I'd feel really remiss if we did not talk about Austin Powers when talking about.
Well,
Bond.
we gotta talk. Yeah, we definitely gotta touch on some Austin Powers.
Because so those are films like I kind of grew up with. Before watching Bond, I'd seen Austin Powers before I'd seen most of the Bonds, if not any of the Bonds, and then we did that marathon and we watched all the Bond movies, and I went back and I watched Austin Powers after that, and suddenly there's a whole new layer of jokes that I had completely missed out on. Because I'd never seen the Bond movies. And like, honestly, I think those films get like, I know a lot of people love them, but just because they're silly humor and stuff like that. But I think a lot of it is underappreciated because of like how good of a parody it is. Yeah. Like, honestly, like that's, I think they're solid flicks, and I think they capture that spirit of Bond while making fun of it and having a good tongue-in-cheek commentary on the spy franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's such a true it's just such a true spoof of what James Bond is as the movies, and it always takes from different like parts of it, right, and brings it in. So you have to kind of have a good knowledge, or you have to at least seen a good majority of the Bond films to get a lot of the jokes. Like if you go up to someone on the street and you say Dr. Evil, well, they're probably going to know who Dr. Evil is. But if you say Blofeld, they're going to be like, sorry, who?
Well, exactly.
Right? Like Dr. Evil is way more built into our pop culture than Blofeld is.
Well, and that's where I think they also work just as their films on their own. Like that's kind of a cool thing 100%. About it. Like that's a cool thing to me. What a parody should actually be is it should work on its own merit as a film. So you don't need to see the source material, but if you see the source material, that's why Spaceballs,
you're going to get all the different layers of jokes.
It's why Spaceballs works so well, because you don't need to see Star Wars to enjoy Spaceballs, but if you do, you're going to enjoy it a lot more, right? Like it's
it just adds another layer.
And that's
for sure.
And that to me is like that to me is a good example of a parody. Like again, the parody is so strong that it ended up influencing the series with Spectre. Like it's kind of crazy. Like it's, I don't know. I get happy when I think about them. I'm back to my grinning after I start thinking about a certain franchise. Do you have a favorite Austin Powers movie?
Probably the original. Actually, no. Maybe the second one.
Let's see. It's I'd say I like
maybe the second one. Like I felt like what was it? Gold? Was it Gold Member or what the hell is the third one?
It
was Gold Member, right? that one was pretty funny, but it wasn't my favorite. I think the second one was my favorite. Was it The Spy Who Shagged Me?
Yep.
That's it, right? Yeah. I think the second one, once they brought in Mini-Me, because Mini-Me wasn't in the original.
Yeah.
But it was in the second one, and I find that...
Honestly.
And Fat Bastard was in the second one. Yeah, I find the second one. I think that's the best one.
Honestly, like, some of my favorite Bond stuff, some of my favorite Austin Powers stuff is with Scott, with Dr. Evil's son. Like, he's...
Yeah.
And, like, I'm still on board with there being an Austin Powers 4. I think, honestly,
I'd watch it. I love Mike Myers, man. He's hilarious.
I was pitching it to Prosser, and what they should do is, like, address, like, finally, because so much time has passed, reboot Austin Powers, but, like, it's the fourth film, but it's a new actor playing Austin Powers. And you have different actors playing, like, you know how the trailer...
In a Bond-esque way.
Yeah, you know how the trailer for the Austin Powers movie in Austin Powers... They had, like, Tom Cruise as Austin Powers and Kevin Spacey
yeah.
So, but do something like that where you get new actors to play, but they're, like... You have Mike Myers playing one of the actors, and then you have these two new actors playing Dr. Evil and Austin Powers, but they just don't really, like, acknowledge that they're not the same actor anymore.
Yeah.
Or I think you could do something really fun with that. I think you could do a really good tongue-in-cheek parody and reference to... how the Bond franchise has gone. I think that's kind of the only logical step you could go with Austin Powers.
This seems to be the next step, yeah.
But again,
or do like a Daniel Craig in like reverse time, like a proto Austin Powers almost.
Because like honestly, I don't know if there's an actor who could, like a current actor who could play that many. Like, I don't think there's a character who could play all the characters Mike Myers did.
No.
Like, I don't think... Like,
and not to the skill level that Mike Myers did, yeah.
Like, and that's... I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing it, but at the same time, I'm also very content if they never made another Austin Powers movie as well.
They were pretty good. You almost don't want to, like... It's like a painting, right? Like, when you have something that's perfect, sometimes adding that extra little touch just ruins it. And then you're like, damn it! Like, that happens to me all the time when I'm working on something. I'll always add something, one detail too far, and it ruins the whole damn thing. So sometimes you just gotta love the trilogy for what it is, and sometimes adding a fourth, sometimes it makes it better. Other times it's kind of like, not great.
I think the third one just had a good ending. Like, it just had a good... resolution to that, right? Like, I think, and even with the meta-ness of it, where they made a movie on Austin Powers, I think that meta-ness really helped complete that that journey, right? And I think that's where I'm okay if they never made another one. It would be fun. I'd be open to it, but they don't need to. And like, I think there's a lot of franchises out like that, unlike Bond, which keep them coming. Like,
keep pumping them, baby.
It's a formula that's worked. Yeah. I think it's the longest running consecutive series.
For sure, hands down. Yeah.
Because, like, I'm trying to think of another film series that has lasted as long as Bond has, and I don't think... Like, and without actually rebooting it. Because you can argue about Casino Royale being, like, a reboot. Maybe it was a reboot, but, like, it really wasn't.
It really isn't.
Well, because
they're all their own thing.
It's the only weird part is M. Going from Pierce Brosnan's M.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Because it's still Judi Dench, and she's great. But, like, it's really weird that, like, Bond seems to regress. But, like, I feel like there's almost, like... So, say that Bond... I'm trying to remember if Casino Royale, if he was... In Casino Royale, at the beginning, he wasn't 007 ever, right?
He literally gets, like, in the opening scene, he literally earns his 007 status.
Okay, so yeah, that's where it just gets wonky for me, because, like, if he was just 007, I would love to see, like, that middle chapter between, like, the Brosnan-Craig series of, like, what happened to Pierce Brosnan's 007 that turned him into Daniel Craig's 007? What terrible things happened to this man between Die Another Day and Casino Royale?
And that's why you can't even take them in chronological order either, right? Because they're not. They're just Bond and stories, and you have different actors playing different characters, that are suited for that story, not necessarily the overall. Because you'd have to consider Bond's age as well, right? Like, what happened? Rodger Moore was clearly a very old man. He was getting pretty old. Like, it was noticeably he was getting old. Then Timothy Dalton, and then this guy, then, you know, Pierce Brosnan. Well, so that's where I think... you can't... They're not chronological ordered, and you can't really take them as overarching stories, except for Daniel Craig's era, which is designed that way, kind of from the beginning.
Well, I think that's where a lot of people... To me,
and Judi Dench she's Judi Dench. Why wouldn't you get her?
Oh, exactly. She's amazing. And then, honestly, her successor, like Ralph Fiennes being her successor, was like
is also gold. Yeah,
like but like I've seen so many people try and solve the conundrum that is the Bond timeline, and I think at the end of the day, you just gotta let it go. You just gotta enjoy it because because each film, well, yes, there's the tie-ins with like there are some tie-ins here and there. There's some connecting factors because I think. Rodger Moore kills Blofeld for what he did to George Lazenby's wife.
I think that was Sean Connery, wasn't it? And Diamonds Are Forever.
Well, because I think,
or did that happen?
Because Diamonds Are Forever.
Or did that all happen?
He kills Blofeld, but then Rodger Moore drops Blofeld down a chimney.
I'm not remembering that.
It's I don't know. That's the thing. There's weird.
Could have been.
Weird timeline.
Yeah.
But like there's something that connected, but
that's the problem.
Then there's
that's the thing.
So do you subscribe to the theory that James Bond is a code name and they're all different or all different people, or do you think that it's just James Bond?
No. I think it's all just James Bond and whatever actors we get to play him, and they just pick stories out of wherever they pick stories out of. Like there's no chronological order to it, except obviously for the Daniel Craig films. But even then, like you can't connect any era to the era before. You know what I mean? Like again, Pierce Brosnan, at the end, M is still Judi Dench, and now Judi Dench is M at Daniel Craig's era. So you like, and she died before Daniel Craig actually became, you know, what we know as James Bond. So you're telling me it's the same actress. The same lady was M. She died, and then she came back later on in life to be M again. Like that wouldn't make sense, right?
Right.
And that's the thing. And while you can take some of these actors or some of the characters and be like, okay, given Bond's age, here's how these stories fit in. But then you're still gonna have inconsistencies with who's playing what characters, if that makes sense, right?
No, that makes perfect sense, man. And it's one of those things.
So when you look at View to a Kill. And you said maybe that's like the oldest in the James Bond timeline, just given his look and Bond's age. Then you have the actor of Q, which is the original actor still, the old guy. But then if that's later, he's not in when Bond is the younger Bond. He's a different one, but he was then in these other ones. So like you're going to have all sorts of inconsistencies when it comes to the actors and who's playing them at the end of the day. Well, the only one that's truly... chronological order is the Craig Bonds, but they're only unique to their own era. Like they don't mix and match between all the other ones either.
But I feel like Q actually works as his own title as well, though, because you actually see them pass the torch from Q,
well, that's exactly it,
to John Cleese, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So by the time if you wanted to say that the Craig movies took place after the Brosnan ones, it still makes sense with Q, because you could just say, oh, they just hired on a new Q. They didn't have one for a couple of years, and they just brought one on. But the problem,
the problem is with the Pierce Brosnan and the Rodger Moore ones. That's where your issue would come in. If you're doing age right, that's where the issue would come in, because Pierce Brosnan's Q was I can't remember, was the original Q just passing the torch in GoldenEye?
Yep.
I think he was still there, right?
Because John Cleese was R, I think.
Right. So it was kind of past the torch on that movie. But then, so that's clearly when Bond's at a very much younger age than what Rodger Moore's last one, where that original Q was still Q.
Well, that's why I'm wondering if, like...
That's why I'm trying to figure out any of it. It's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Are ages... Do you think ages are just inconsequential when it comes to the Bond franchise?
100%, yeah.
So to me, again, the only thing that really, even holds back the Craig ones from tying into the Brosnan ones are literally by him getting the title of 007 at the beginning of Casino Royale. If you didn't have that where he got that title,
and he was already that, really... you could have just keep moving forward.
And you would have the M storyline would have made sense. And again, the only big question to be like, what happened to Bond between Pierce Brosnan and Craig? Like, and I think that would have been an interesting story too, is to see the fall of Bond, basically see where it's like something happened and he fell from grace and basically
just became devolved.
Yeah, and like I think that would have been an interesting
more
take,
savage and brutal.
Like, but I understand why they didn't go for that, because at the end of the day, A, it's Bond, and every movie doesn't affect the other ones until you get to the Craig ones, and B, I don't think audiences would have been ready for that by 2005.
No, definitely not.
I don't think we were quite ready for like meta commentary like that until about like, I mean, arguably Scream had that, but that was kind of still like a new weird thing. But I honestly don't think we really got comfortable with that idea of the meta-ness until about maybe the late 2000s to early 2010s.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what's interesting about Bond, right? Like, there is no timeline, there is no overarching story at the end of the day. Again, minus the Craig era films, but that doesn't connect to anything else. And I think that's just, you just gotta love Bond stories for Bond stories. It's gonna have James Bond. There's gonna be the main parts, and you can love it or you can hate it. That's totally your choice. But it doesn't affect any movie around it, which is also kind of nice in its own way. Whereas sometimes when you have trilogies, like we were talking about Star Wars earlier before we started recording, right? You talk about trilogies and how one wrong movie or a couple wrong movies affect the movies around them.
Yeah.
Right? So that can be an issue. Whereas James Bond, if the next movie sucks, well, it doesn't really ruin the movie before it, because that really had no connection to it.
Well, because even with the Craig movies, like, do you need to see Casino Royale to see Quantum, kind of, I guess.
But they kind of fill in the gaps, right? Like, and honestly,
like, do you need to see any of them before you see Skyfall? Do you need to see any of those before you see Spectre?
Yeah.
Because I feel like all those movies also still work as standalone Bond films.
And they do, 100%. I was just going to say that. Those movies work completely standalone. Skyfall, probably the most standalone of all.
Yes.
Because it had no connection to anything until Spectre brought it in to the overarching fold, right? And that's kind of nice about the Bond films. But they're only kind of referencing, oh, this happened. It's not essential viewing or affects how you view one movie or the other. So one movie can be bad, but it doesn't ruin the other movie.
But I think that speaks to the strength and longevity of what Bond is.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why it's worked for as many years as it has. Because every movie is, again, you can take it or leave it. You can, like, as you said, you like the odd movies for Daniel Craig's.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like you can literally like every other film and watch every other film, and you're not missing anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'd love to see. I'd love to see moving forward is just that individual basis. Like, even if for some reason we ended up having, like, I like the consistency of having a Bond actor for a couple movies, but even if, for say, like, after Daniel Craig, for the next, like, 6 Bond movies, we had, like, a different Bond every movie, it'd still work. As long as the story's good, and as long as it's entertaining, and as long as it's Bond,
yeah,
we're good. Like,
not everything has to be connected.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, like you said, that's where they thrived. That's why it's lasted so long, because they're not held down by story beats and story arcs and whatever else. They can just do whatever the hell they want every single movie.
Could you imagine if Bond was reliant on continuity?
See, yeah, it would not work.
It would be a mess.
It would be a huge mess at this point.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Like, because basically then you're relying on the fact that this secret agent is still in his 30s or 40s.
Yeah, exactly.
60 years later. Like
60 years later. Still a young chap, right? And each film is obviously built in the era it's made, right? So, yeah, you're saying Bond was still Bond back in the 60s, but he's still Bond right now in 2020, right? So, there's, yeah.
And that's why I think, like, honestly, I don't think Bond's going to go anywhere. I think he's going to stick around and keep being him. I know he's gonna evolve, like as we talked about, he's evolving as time has progressed.
Yeah.
It's again, we don't get the same not okay stuff and Sean Connery stuff as we've obviously come a long way from there to what we get in the Daniel Craig Bonds.
Even as films and how they're made. Huge jumps and evolutions.
There's actually a mutual attraction between a man and a woman, as opposed to like
one-sided.
Exactly. Like I think that's the strength of the character, and that's the strength of the series too, is it has never been afraid to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
It's never been afraid to change.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's the real strength to it.
And then too, like, this is Daniel Craig's last film, this one coming up now. And even if Bond, I feel like for the next Bond, it's obvious, I don't think they're going to keep the continuity, right? Like, this will be its unique 5-film continuity, and then I'm sure it'll just go back to random, or they'll start a new continuity. It's like to continue on from one to the next, I don't think will happen. I think it's going to go back to just the old style ways of kind of one-off films as we go. Just a good James Bond story.
Do you think that they might try to kill off Bond by the end of this movie?
I don't know. Never really thought about that, to be honest.
I'm assuming you'd rather they didn't?
I don't know. I don't have any preference, really. Like, if he died, as long as the story's told well. Like, at the end of the day. Like, whether a character lives or dies doesn't really matter to me as long as the story is told well. Like, it'll hurt my heart a little bit, and it'll hurt my soul a bit, but if he dies, he dies. And that starts from your complete story from the beginning to the end, right? And puts it all together, and that's a nice little neat package of 5 movies. And you just keep making Bond movies, right? Because it doesn't matter if he's dead. There's no chronological order. It doesn't matter.
And that's, again, the cool thing with Bond, is you could totally do that. You could totally have Bond die in a movie and be like, okay, well, X movie.
Yeah.
Moving on, guys.
And that's not even necessarily, like, the newest or the latest or the last Bond film, right?
Yeah.
So they have the freedom to do whatever they want, and I think that's really given them the ability to last for 60 years, right? And hopefully another 60 more.
Because even if a Bond film flops, guess what? You just make another Bond film.
Yeah.
It's like, man, this one did terrible at the box office. Okay, let's do one, but let's do it good. Okay. And
okay, let's do it, and let's do it good. If it was only that easy, eh? Like, let's just make a good movie. Good idea. Why didn't we think about this before? It was only I was missing that something. Simple.
We were forgetting something, and it was to make a good movie.
Only that simple. And historically, even at the box office, Bonds haven't been huge draws. Like, the fact that it survived so long as far as it has is impressive in itself, because the Bond films, every time they come out, like, they're not generally the biggest box office makers. Like, more so now in our generation and later down the line. But originally, you look at how much money those movies made and how well they were received, like, not always great. Not always great, but they still last because people love them. And I think they grow on you, too, as time goes on, to be honest.
When they started off, man, they were B movies. They were not big movies. They were just like this random spy stuff that no one really cared about.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It blew up over time.
Yeah. Over 60 years of time.
Exactly. Did you play a lot of Bond video games aside from GoldenEye growing up, or not really?
GoldenEye was like the big one on N64.
Yeah, man.
Man, that golden gun, like one shot kill, bam, that was gold.
I hated it. I hated it so much. I'm not a good shot.
I like slappers only. That was fun.
And all the cheats to like make your characters look different and all that stuff. And...
oh, that was such a great game for its time.
Dude, it's still good. Out. Like, it's still fun. Like, I have N64. I have a copy of it, and just put in multiple controllers. It's honestly, it's good for the multiplayer. The story mode's like okay, but like the multiplayer is where it's at. That was my first experience to like first person shooters.
That was everyone's, man. As far as like on console, PC, I think still had it, but
like on console, it just like it really like
it was a game changer.
Yeah, man. Like, I love it.
And I'm trying to think of this one other Bond game that I played that was really well done, and I haven't seen another Bond game like it. And it disappoints me that there hasn't been another Bond game like it. Because Bond video games have so much potential to just be great games. And I'm trying to think of what this one was called.
Was it on PC or was it on a console?
No, it was on console. No, okay, so the one game I was thinking about was Everything or Nothing. And this was the Pierce Brosnan one. It came out in 2003 and it was third person. And it was really, really well done. Like, it was a really well done. Like, it had action scenes, it had stealth stuff, it had, obviously great shooting mechanics, and a lot of, like, action scenes with driving and everything like that. And Jaws was in it, and it was great. It was great. I think the main villain was Willem Dafoe, too. Like, it was actually a fan. I loved that game. It was so good. And I'm disappointed that no games actually come out that's really competed with that. Nightfire was good in the whole GoldenEye type of game.
Yeah, like it felt very... Nightfire felt very... It just felt like another Bond film. It felt like you were playing through that. And I feel like... chances I just have this feeling that, like, Nightfire and Everything or Nothing are just kind of like the top. That's kind of like where the games really reached.
They are. You got GoldenEye, you got Nightfire, and Nightfire and Everything or Nothing are back to back in years. Nightfire 2002, Everything or Nothing 2003. Very different types of Bond games though. Whereas Nightfire was still that first person, Everything or Nothing was a third person, so it was very cinematic.
I was really upset when they announced GoldenEye back in 2010. Because they're like, oh yeah,
the remake?
we're remaking GoldenEye.
With Daniel Craig.
And like, why? And then it wasn't actually a remake of the 64 version, although like it was supposed to be, but then it wasn't, and then it was just like...
It had some elements that were the same, some different. They changed all the actors and stuff,
and like, I don't know why. Like, why would you...
It was an alright game, like, overall. It wasn't the best. Let's see,
I think that's a shame, though, when you have a really good game that came out on the N64, and then you try to remaster it or remake it, and it becomes not as good as the one that was on the N64.
That's problematic.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
What's this one? I mean, did I hear about this one called 007 Legends?
Oh yeah, that was also not a... Okay, so I bought this game because I thought it would be much better, but it's actually a Bond game, and it's like... It's first-person style, and it is various Bond movies. So Moonraker was in there. What the hell else was in there? I don't know. There was like multiple Bond films in there in the game, but it was like 3 levels per movie kind of thing. So you never got really a good feeling for the films itself. And they were all Daniel Craig Bond. Like, they did kind of what they did with GoldenEye, but just with different films. But Daniel Craig was the Bond in those films. But he wasn't.
Well, why would, like,
you know what I mean?
why not just make an original story? Like, why not just tell
Well, exactly, man, because it didn't do any justice. Like, there was no overarching story, right? Because it's like you had 3 levels that were in one movie, then 3 levels in another movie, then 3 levels in another movie, right? Like, it was not, and the gameplay itself was not good. Daniel Craig's had a rough time as far as Bond games go. They haven't been great in his era. There was one that was pretty good called Bloodstone that came out in 2010. That one was pretty good. Yeah. Like, that's as close as I ever got to Everything or Nothing again. But it still was nowhere near as good as that was.
But it's lazy. To me, it's lazy writing. It's like, write a new story.
Man.
I know writing video games is hard, but like...
Dude, Activision has the rights, and Activision always cheaps out. Like, they always just make like the crappiest licensed games ever. Like, you have to get it to a studio that actually cares. And I don't know where the rights are right now for Bond games, but I hope they're somewhere better and they're making a really good game, because the potential's there. Hopefully. Unlimited potential for a fantastic game. But GoldenEye still,
this might sound bad, but
GoldenEye's amazing.
Honestly, if they say that they abandoned making Bond movies and just made made the move over to making exclusive games that would be like in continuity kind of, I'd play them if they're good, if they're done well.
Well, I don't even need them. I don't need them to stop making movies. I just make sure a good studio has a right to make good games, and it'll happen. It's like you have to have a studio that has a passion behind it. and where you got the talent and the writing staff and the designers and, you know, all those types of things. It's like a good film, right? Like when you have the right group in there, it works. If you have the wrong group in there, it doesn't. And the Bond films the Bond games, have generally been cash cows, right? Like they're just cash grabs.
Yeah.
They have the James Bond license. That's all they're like, that's all we need. We'll make money. So they just half-ass make a game. Yeah.
Do you think they would even try as hard to make games if GoldenEye didn't get as well received as it did?
Oh, for sure they would, because it's a big license, right? Like, yeah, GoldenEye was, like, the pinnacle, and it still, honestly, probably is. Like, as far as Bond games go. Is
bizarre.
N64,
like, it shouldn't be the standard.
Dude, welcome to the world of video games, man. Like...
But I think the multiplayer is the big thing that elevated its standard, because the story's good, it's fun, the game mechanics are kind of not great, but I mean, it's N64, what do you expect?
Yeah.
But, like, that multiplayer, that changed, to me, and maybe I'm wrong in it, but that changed the face of gaming.
No, it changed the game, especially first-person shooters on consoles, right? The next big leap was Halo, when that came out. That was another big leap, right? But GoldenEye was kind of the original first-person shooter on console. No one thought it could be done.
And
right?
Halo 5
and they did it. And then Halo 5 proved it. Well, mechanics-wise, not really. The mechanics were great. It was just the story was shit. But
and the multiplayer that didn't exist anymore, except it did exist, but only online.
But yeah, no, the games just have a rocky path, and honestly, if they would just stick true to the spirit of what James Bond is, you have gadgets, you have car chases, you have a bit more of the subtle stuff too, right? Like more spy stuff.
Well,
great characters, great story, dude. Like, it is unlimited potential for a great game.
What gaming is now, it's perfect to make a Bond game.
Perfect, yeah.
Like,
and
like, you can have all that in one game. You can have a good shooter, you can have a good hand-to-hand, you can have a good adventurer and platformer, you can have a good detective and mystery. It shouldn't be that hard, because look at the Spider-Man games, the Arkham games, Uncharted.
Yep.
You can easily turn a movie into a video game, or you should be able to.
Yeah.
But no one wants to put the time and effort into it.
Well, no, it's not nobody. It's just whoever wins the rights,
people who
right?
have the people who have the money and the means don't want to put the time and effort in.
Like, it's just whoever wins the rights. And you got huge companies in gaming like EA and Activision, and usually when they get the rights to things, they'll just milk it, right? And that's what we saw with a lot of the Bond games. Like, a lot of them are just milked games. It's not the quality and the effort put into it. It's just, we have the license, slap that up there, and then just make a half-ass game. Transformers have had the same problems. Batman has had the same problems. Spider-Man has had the same problems until the PS4 version. You know, like, so
it's the same thing with
So any character, any licensed character, these bigger studios get they earn the bid, right, or whatever. They get the license, and then they make half-ass products because they have the name.
Even Star Wars games, like when they were LucasArts, there were good quality Star Wars games, and then EA took over.
And it's been a mess, right? Now, finally, almost what? When did they get those license? When did they get that license?
Well,
6, 7, 8 years ago, and we're only now starting to get better games.
The Battlefront 1, the new series of Battlefront 1, it was mediocrely received. Like, it wasn't like people didn't hate it, but they were like,
it was severely lacking content.
And then Battlefront 2 came out and they had a story, but then all those microtransactions.
The story was junk. Yeah, the story wasn't not good. It was actually legitimately terrible as far as like a writing and storytelling goes. Not good. You had so many microtransactions, and everything was built around the microtransactions. And the only way to progress was like a literally pay-to-win system. The more you paid, the faster you could get better, right? So there was a lot of problems. Now. Yes, it's much better now. They've added a lot of updates over the last 2-3 years. And it's a considerably better game now. And ethical to play. Ethical to play.
I play it on the regular now. It's fun. Like, I have a good time with it.
But it's only now in 2020 that, and you know, Jedi Fallen Order came out last year, and that was a really good game. So it's only now, and they've had this license I think since whenever Disney bought Lucasfilm, Because when did Force Awakens come out? 2015?
2015.
So you're looking at 2012, probably 20. So yeah, I think the EA got the license around 2012. So you're looking only now we're finally getting some quality, and they've canceled like 3 or 4 other games.
That's because Disney almost took away the licensing from them.
Yeah,
the whole Battlefront 2 thing, like they
was a problem. Lost it. That was a problem.
Like, I think that's the problem with, as we said, with the Bond games now too. It's, as you said, it's the people who have the licensing aren't putting the care into
and it. I don't know who has the licensing right now. I don't know if Activision still does. If they don't, I hope they don't, because I hope it's in the hands of another development company right now, and they're making a great Bond film, or not Bond film. They're making another great Bond game right now, and we just don't know about it yet. That's what I would love to see. Like, over the next couple of years, I'd love to see them being like, we have a new game, and it's gonna be dope, because this was built by a passionate team who loves James Bond. And I would have been like, I'd be like, yes, because that's all you need. That's all you need, man.
If you have a good enough property and you have people who love that property, you can make amazing things.
Exactly.
Don't just rely on the property. You got to find the people. Like, it's
exactly, and put the time and money and effort into it, right? And like that's what it is. And when the big ones get it, they tend to not, because they rely solely on the license and put out a half-assed product. But when you get a group who's passionate, they don't just rely on the license. They take the license and elevate it into all aspects of that game, right? And Bond, again, has the potential to be incredible. Again, my favorite one, Everything or Nothing. I would suggest even looking it up on YouTube and watching a Let's Play of that, because it was great. Like, they had Jaws in there, man. I'm pretty sure Willem Dafoe was the bad guy. It was like microbots. You went to Russia. You drove a tank. Like, there was just ton. Did you drive a tank, that one? I think so. Regardless, there was a lot of really interesting things they did, even with the car stuff. Like, there was like car stealth levels where you had to like drive around, not get spotted, and little spider bots, and this really sick sequence on a bridge with a motorcycle that had a flamethrower shooting out of the side. Like, it was really dope. So that game was tops, and that was the best Bond game I've ever played, probably. And to see something like that again would be awesome, man.
I'm surprised it's one that missed my radar, but I mean, like, Nightfire was one I played on, like, I had it on PC and I just play it. I don't think I ever beat it because I'm terrible at video games, but like, or at least I was really bad back then, and now I'm better. But it's one that still, like, I kept going back to. I kept revisiting because it was a good story. It had me intrigued. It was fun. Like, and that's, at the end of the day, it's the same thing with the Bond movies. I think that's all you need in a Bond game, is it to be intriguing and fun. Like, it's not that maybe it's harder than we think, but I don't feel it's that hard.
Well, to make a movie, it's always hard, right? Like, to make a game, it is always hard. And I get the developers themselves and the creators. No one goes out to be like, we're going to make a I'm going to make the most mediocre movie ever. You know what I mean? We're all trying to make the best movie. Sometimes, whether it's studio interference, whether it's budgets, whether it's whatever different constraints don't allow that to obviously happen, or whether even the execution isn't quite right and it just doesn't work. Sometimes that happens too. So it's not always easy, but
sometimes it just, the people who,
as long as when there's love and passion into it, it definitely shows, compares to when we're just doing it to do it.
But sometimes even then, the people with passion aren't the right people to make that product either.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
it's such a volatile. Creating things is just a volatile environment. Like, it's great and it's fun, but you got to have the right people, you got to have the right resources and everything to just capture that. Like, it's interesting. And
overall, like, Bond has been successful. Overall, Bond, I think, is generally loved. Like, maybe you don't like one movie here, one movie there, or maybe you think most of the movies are like average at best, but Bond is loved. And it's kind of similar to Star Wars when you think about it, right? There's way more mediocre Star Wars content than there is great Star Wars content, but we all think of Star Wars as being freaking amazing. And it's the same with Bond. There's way more mediocre Bond content than there is amazing Bond content, but we love it.
What I think,
because it's the characters, it's the world, it's the stories, and how it affects us.
Make us feel.
Yeah, exactly.
It's 100% how it feels, and You just get that feeling in your gut, and you're like, yeah, I'm excited. Even if this is mediocre, it's still... And a lot of, actually, like, not to give too much credit just to the music, but I think a lot of it comes down to the music, too.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you hear that Star Wars theme, and you're like, jazzed. You hear that Bond theme, and you're like, yeah! And it's like, I think that...
It sets the tone, man.
Too.
Yeah.
It's the mysticism of creative arts.
Beautiful, man. Well, any other things to mention about James Bond here?
No, nothing really about Bond. I think I'm
You're
all
happy?
bonded out. Oh, yeah.
Perfect. Let us know what you guys think of the Bond films, the Bond characters, the actors, the games. Just let us know your feelings on James Bond as well. Because, yeah, it's a really interesting thing to look at. I mean, over 60 years of James Bond, or coming up to 60 years probably. It's not quite, but it's getting there. It's getting there.
2024?
Something like that. 2024 or 2025. Because I think Spectre 50 years of Bond? I can't remember. Maybe not. Or was that Skyfall 50 years of Bond? Yeah, it's hard to remember. But regardless, this decade, we're getting to 60 years of James Bond. And it's just incredible to look at. Again, whether it's the music or the films. Go ahead.
2022.
Okay.
It came out in 1962.
There we go. So 2022 is 60 years of James Bond, 2 years away. And whether you're looking at the characters, the films, the versions of Bond themselves, the music, it is this traveling, it's a time machine, man. It's a time capsule series where you can go back and look and you can see the different influences of the time. And it's just, I love James Bond. I love the world. I love the music. And I just love how you get this huge variation of characters. And they're all James Bond. They're all James Bond.
Characters, tones, everything. Right?
Yeah.
It's just, it's such a...
It's such a mixed bag. Franchise. It's so unique. So unique to film. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, Matt, what's next for you this week? Or is it just more Vikings?
Oh, just more Vikings, man. I'm on season 4 now. Halfway through. Episode 12. And it does not disappoint. It's very, very intriguing and interesting. Man, it always surprises me, though. The one thing that's interesting about this series is, even though it's a main character, they will die. And, you think this character is important? 4 episodes later, never mind. They're killed off with, no fanfare. It's just they dead.
Happens.
Yeah. There's this one, I won't spoil anything. There's this one character who has a child, and then one episode, that child's just dead in a river. And they're like, I found them dead in a river. Just dead. Okay. And then,
I guess it's realistic.
And the lady's like, oh, I thought someone else was watching her. What? It was just... So, things like that. Characters come and go so quickly. And, they do huge jumps in time. But it's a great series. And it's very, very intriguing. And just to see the character development, the overall story arc of the main character is a downward story arc, right? It's not like the character keeps becoming better. It's you can see the decline in the character over the series. So it's been a lot of fun. I might even watch some James Bond films now. I feel like I have to go watch the Craig ones again. I don't really remember Spectre that much, so I want to give that a second try and to see what Quantum of Solace is all about again. But I'll start with Casino Royale and go from there. What's next for you, bud?
Do it. I'm not too sure. We're still making our way through our marathons. Yeah, I'm trying to remember everything that I'm trying to watch. There's so many things, man. I've actually been revisiting older kids' movies, too. I'll probably watch Bill and Ted either today or sometime this week.
Nice.
Yeah, because this past week I just watched Space Jam and Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Iron Giant. Just kind of revisiting things from... The 90s talk just made me super nostalgic.
Yeah, it does, right? Every time, man. Cool, man. Well, that was a great conversation. I am stuffed. That was absolutely a scrumptious buffet of Bond. Buffet of Bond.
A lot of British foods and stuff, right?
a lot of British stuff. The name's Bond. James Bond. And again, I just loved, man, just going back through it and thinking about these films was just great. And
he gets you jazzed to go back and watch it.
Exactly. And whether you're talking about like some of the negative stuff of the time period and some of the good things, you're like, man, every one of those films has its own charm to it. Every one, even the corny and goofy ones, they're still pretty good. It's still pretty good.
Oh yeah,
there's still definitely some entertainment value there. But no, I enjoyed talking about, man. It was great. And yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for us today. Well, of course, you know where to find us if you're listening to us right now. Of course, if you're on YouTube, we're also on podcast. If you just want to have the audio version, all the links are down below, especially for Ethan's channel, my channel. My channel is getting a rework right now, so there's nothing really of interest to see there. But there's some new stuff coming, and it's coming up. I want to say soon, but depends your definition of soon. Coming up in life. At some point, at some time in your lifetime, most likely, something will show up there. But yeah, and that's pretty much it for us. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe so you're always up to date on our next videos. But that's it for Feast of Films episode 007. I'm Matt Black.
I'm Ethan R. Hill.
And we will see you guys later.
Have a great week, everybody.
Bye-bye.
So long.
Toodaloo. Ba-da, ba-da, ba-da-da.
Is the singing a new thing we're doing now at the end of every video?
We almost should. That'd be hilarious.
Oh, man. But Matt, I'd need to be a good singer then.
You do fine.